Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and get some incredible motivation from the one and only Tom Bilyeu.
As Don Murray once said, the audience does not turn the page because of a hunger to applaud. What we all have to understand is at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how good is your product. Whether you're trying to build a company or you're trying to be a kick-ass employee or you're trying to be the best parent of all time, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is getting good. The only thing that matters is actually delivering an extraordinary performance. Until you get to that point where you can actually knock it out of the park, until you get to the point where you can captivate people with what you're able to do, you haven't gotten anywhere. If you want to be great, if you want to leave a legacy, if you want to be remembered, you've got to focus on the acquisition of skills. You have to focus on actually getting good. That's the only thing that's really going to capture people's imagination. And as Vince Lombardi said, the man on top of the mountain didn't fall there. It's so tempting to look at people that have achieved the extraordinary and dismiss them as being more talented than you, better than you. But what you need to see is the simple truth. They've worked harder than you. They've earned something that you haven't yet earned. But here's the great news. That's empowering. Once you understand that they've just busted ass, once you understand that they've just put in an inhuman amount of work, and that the only thing that distinguishes the people that are on top of the mountain, the people that have really done something that's going to last, is that they put in the effort. They work on themselves. They understand that through discipline and effort over time, that we can get better. That is the human condition. That is the thing that I find most beautiful about being a person, is it doesn't matter if you're bad today. It doesn't matter where you start. It only matters where you're willing to go and the price that you're willing to pay to get there. And once you buckle down and you assure yourself and back it up with action that you're willing to pay any price to achieve the things that you want to achieve, then you'll really be living a limitless life. You'll be able to do the things that are important. And as Elon Musk said, if something is important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure. And that's where most people stop. And this is the one that drives me crazy. And this is the thing about really trying to do something with your life. Yes, you might fail. Yes, you might embarrass yourself. You might end up doing a faceplant. You might end up wishing that you hadn't even started. But if it's important enough, even in that moment, you've got to get back up and ask yourself, honestly, where did I fail? What was the skill that I didn't have that was required of this task? And once you stop beating yourself up, once you stop turning inward with a judgment of I'm not good enough, and you start turning inward with the judgment of I don't have good enough skills yet, then you can do something, because you know it's only a matter of time, effort, and focus between who you are today and who you need to become to actually do that thing. So don't worry about whether or not you're going to fail, because the only promise that I can make you is that you will fail. And as long as the only promise that you're willing to make yourself is that you won't stop, ultimately you will get to the top of the mountain.
This is another part of the rebuilding process of somebody that wants to completely transform who they are. You have to change your identity. So who am I? I'm the smart guy. And that's how I thought of myself. Like, I thought of myself as being smart. And then the life slapped me around and I realized, oh, wow, I'm really actually not that smart. I just grew up in a small town. And so in my small town, I was smart enough. I was still never the smartest. But then I moved to LA and all of a sudden fucking people smarter than me were just like growing on trees. So I was like, wow, I really don't feel smart anymore. So that was like a hard adjustment. And so then putting myself into these smaller and smaller rooms was the solution. But I realized that I'd been sort of taken as a default value intelligence. Maybe it was the family I grew up in or the movies I watched, I don't know. But I just had this default that being smart was the thing everyone should chase. And then I realized, oh, I can actually change that. Not everybody values themselves for that. And so I could swap that out with something else. And I want people to understand that those things that are just deeply within you that seem as if they are innate human qualities, challenge them all. Some things you won't be able to change, but some things are far more malleable than you thought. And a lot of what you value comes down to what you repeat. And so just repeating myself, I'm the learner, I'm the learner, I'm the learner. It began to be my identity, and then rewarding myself emotionally when I did that, repeating it, rewarding, repeating, rewarding. Then it's like through that repetition cycle, it actually starts to be meaningful that you're the learner. And by the way, I was telling everybody, I'm the learner. I see myself as the learner. I'm the learner. I'm the learner. And because I was telling people, then I really felt the sense of congruence with wanting to act like the learner. And so when you say you're going to do something and you do it, you earn self-credibility. So now I've got this loop going. I said I was the learner. Here I am reading this book. Here I am being willing to admit when I'm wrong, seeking out knowledge, looking for disconfirming evidence. Like, I get to feel good about myself for that.
I like the juxtaposition of the high intensity fight or flight sympathetic response of being in the gym, and then the parasympathetic response of meditating. And being able to rapidly shift your state, like on a physiological level, is really important. So I go from that, I come out of the gym, I'm huffing and puffing, I sit down and I see how rapidly I can calm my heart rate, how rapidly I can calm my breath, and I listen to the sounds of nature. So if it's raining outside, I'll listen to rain. If it's night, I'll listen to the sounds of like a meadow at night. Which I actually find really relaxing. And I get lost in that. Now, the reason that I do that is that shifts you into what's called an alpha wave state.
Love this.
When you get into an alpha wave state, it's commonly referred to as being calm and creative. So it's not sleepy, okay? That's like getting more into theta. So you feel completely alert, but you feel calm, you feel creative. And so parts of your brain are talking that don't normally talk. So you get these like really far-flung sort of creative answers to a problem. Since the whole point of this is to get into an alpha wave state, as soon as I feel completely calm and creative, sometimes it takes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes 30 minutes. But once I feel calm and creative, I go into thinkitating, where I let my mind begin to wander onto the biggest problems that I face in my business. And in that, I'll just have these ideas and I take notes and I go back to it. So I'm still breathing, I'm still keeping my eyes closed except when I'm taking notes. And I stay in that space, and I can sometimes elongate that for another 30 minutes. So my typical meditation's 15 to 20, and then I'll thinkitate for 10 to 40 minutes, depending on like if I'm really on a vein of something interesting. And knowing that I'm gonna be able to do that once I get into the alpha state, I actually get into the alpha state much faster because I'm not thinking, oh, is this an idea I should take a note on? I'm just like, when am I really there?
Yes.
When I feel it click in, I'm like, okay, cool. And if I have an idea, boom, then I go for it.
As Emiliano Zapata said, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. It's one of those things I think echoes through everybody's heart, but it is easy to say and it is very hard to do. And that brings me to the most central quote to my life. Never give in. Never, never, never. In nothing great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy. Winston Churchill. That to me is the mantra that you have to say over and over and over if you want to live on your feet. You have to understand there are going to be times where the might of the enemy is so clearly superior to the force that you have mustered in your own soul, that what they bring to bear, they are so much farther ahead. They have force that makes you want to crumble in despair at their feet. And at that moment, you have to know who you are. At that moment, you have to know that under no circumstances would you ever yield to that you will rise up, that you will stand before anybody, not afraid to be struck down. That you could handle. Connecting to something other than the money, I was finally able to really see and understand what it was that motivated me. And I confessed to them that money was not my highest priority in business. My highest priority was camaraderie. I wanted to connect. I wanted to bring something of value to the customer. I wanted to think about the customer. I wanted to be myself. And I wanted to market in a way that was inclusive and created a community. And in that community, we could do something more than just sell products. And so we decided to sell that company because they felt the same. And they wanted to do something based on passion. They wanted to have the energy and excitement to see things through. And for 3 very different reasons, we decided to form Quest Nutrition. Now, as I mentioned, I grew up in a morbidly obese family. So for me, I was never going to chase money again. And I told them that. I was only going to focus on value creation. And it had to be something that I had a deep and personal connection to. So for me, I started thinking every day about saving my mom and my sister. My mom and my sister are both morbidly obese and have been essentially my entire life. And I knew that I was going to lose them too soon if I couldn't solve the problem of how they ended up there. I wanted to give them food that they could choose based on taste, and it happened to be good for them.
The only thing that would get me out of bed, 15 years before I'm capable of building a billion-dollar company, the only thing that got me out of bed was shame. So you have to understand that people had not misidentified me. This is not a story of someone who was born extraordinary. People just couldn't see it, that I was secretly this amazing person who was just waiting for their opportunity to shine. This was somebody who was lazy as had no idea what they were going to do with their life. I had no idea how I was going to pull it off. I was absolutely terrified. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw me staring back, and I knew how lazy I was. I knew how afraid I was. I knew how insecure I was. I knew that at my core, I wanted people to like me, and I was terrified that they had every reason in the world not to like me. But instead of becoming someone who was worthy of self-respect, who was worthy of their respect, all I was trying to do was campaign. I was trying to posture. I was trying to create the illusion that I was something because that seemed like I could do it fast instead of just buckling down and doing the hard-ass work of becoming somebody new. Because I had one failed misunderstanding. I believed that my talent and intelligence were fixed traits. I was born a certain way, and life was about making the most of what I'd been born with. What I did not yet understand is the reason humans are the ultimate apex predator, the reason that we have taken over the globe in a way that no other species has, is because we are the ultimate adaptation machine. Darwin is often misquoted as saying it's the strongest of the species that survive. He did not say that. What he said was it's neither the strongest of the species that survive nor the most intelligent, but rather the most adaptive to change.
Getting good at being strategic. And this is why I'm always reading business books, I'm always reading about the mind, and I'm always trying to learn about what industry I'm going into. So right now, boys and girls, I am enmeshed in the world of comics. And I'm trying to ask and answer some very fundamental questions about why the industry is so broken. So first of all, you have to understand it well enough to see that it is broken. Then second, you've got to understand it well enough that you can actually figure out what are the real answers to this. So diving in, reading what you can, finding out who are the influencers in that space, who are the real thought leaders, who's got insight into this that's going to be incredibly usable. Once you have that, then you begin compiling your own worldview of that thing. But you've got to practice that. You've got to get, and I really stopped midstream there. There's a whole universe that goes around how you get good at being strategic and breaking things down.
I believe the greatest gift that any great thinker can offer the world is to take the time to write down all of their insights. They say a fool never learns, a smart man learns from his mistakes, and a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I have spent a lot of time being a fool. I've spent a reasonable amount of time being smart, but oh man, it is precious few times when I've truly been able to be wise and learn from someone else. But virtually every time I was able to get some wisdom, it was at the hands of an author. When people ask me who my mentors were, I always tell them it's the authors that I've read. Books contain the secrets to the universe. Iron Man, the movie franchise is off the charts. And what is it? At the same time that you have people occupying Wall Street, you have them celebrating one of the richest people on the planet. Why? Because he dresses up like a superhero and he tries to save the world. People don't mind money. People don't mind that you want to create a beautiful lifestyle for you and your family. They don't mind people getting rich, but they care a lot about how you do it. They care a lot about what you do with it once you have it. Nobody likes Scrooge McDuck.
Don't ever leak a photo of you swimming in your money. I promise it will not go well. But if you have a vision for how your company could make the world a better place and you use social media to allow people to touch and be evangelized by your brand, if you're thinking, how can I make a product or a service that actually makes the lives better of the people that work at the company and the people who buy the product? If that's the question that you're asking, man, they will rally around you. And we live in this amazing time, and you've got to take advantage of that. And it really freaks me out when people think that we're like either the social movement is cresting or it's behind us. It's only gaining steam. The TV's going away. The mobile phone is becoming the television. Like, these changes are a one-way ticket to difference. Now, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I just know it's not going to stop. And it sure as hell isn't going to go in reverse.
Only in the process of gaining mastery will you find passion. So to me, passion comes out of, it's kind of like love. I don't believe that love, it needs a different word. Unrequited love is a very different neurological state than reciprocal love. So if you have unrequited love, to me, that's something you really, like, I love singing, but I'm good at it. So I have unrequited love. I love singing, but singing does not love me back. Now, I could go down the process of gaining mastery, and then I may find that I have a real passion for it, because part of it's going to become, oh, I'm gaining this skill, and this skill of singing allows me to have an emotional impact not only on myself but on other people. I can make them feel good. I can change their mood. I can tell a story, whatever it is that you want to do with the music. But when you're able to do that and you're truly good at it and it has the outcome that you desire, then it can become a passion. But to get a passion, you've got to fight through just ridiculous amounts of boredom, fatigue, everything to truly become good enough at it that it's a skill that has utility.
I don't think people have researched cognitive behavioral therapy nearly enough. Pattern interrupting is like everything. Get better at pattern interrupting than LeBron is at shooting. Like, you just have to be a ninja. Like, you've got to be so hardcore. You've got to know about how to do that with yourself. So if I have a negative thought that's recurring, I just tell myself, nope, you can't think this anymore. So, and every time it will come up, because I can't stop myself from it popping up into my conscious mind, but you absolutely can control how the next thought goes. The next thought can be, and here's what I'll do with a negative thought. That's so rad. I'm so glad this negative thought appeared in my mind, because that reminds me to be grateful for the fact that I'm friends with Jay Shetty. Or that reminds me to be grateful for the fact I have a marriage that is so insanely cool that, like, I legitimately some days have to stop myself from just curling up in a ball with her and just chilling all day. Like, that is, I'm super stoked. Even now, Jay, it's so funny. I had to stop and think, wait, I'm going through this list of things that I'm grateful for. What started this? And I'm like, oh yeah, the negative thought. Like, that actually just happened to me right now. Yeah. So you can imagine in real life when, like, you train yourself, every time the negative thought kicks up, don't sit in the emotion of the negativity that it will bring. Instead, use it as a habit loop trigger to think about something you're grateful for. And at first, it feels so awkward, and it's like the negative thought just keeps coming back. But if you're diligent and suddenly negative thoughts become a habit loop trigger to gratitude, to positivity, to repeating your rules about, I don't allow myself to think things that tear me down, so I'm not gonna think about that. Even just saying that crowds out that thought and telling other people that, hey, this is what you're doing. It is unbelievable. But this is where I'm saying I'm literally just a patchwork of all these, like, tools and techniques that allow me to protect myself from negative self-talk, from anxiety, from depression. I don't think I've ever officially been in depression, but I've been super close enough to know the feeling of staring into the void, which I don't think is accurate. It feels like the void is collapsing in around you, and just everything is meaningless, and it is all utterly hopeless. And I've had just enough of a glimpse of how hopeless that is to get where people are in those moments. But anxiety, that I've been in the thick of. So that one I know, and I've used CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to do interrupts on that. I have a very well-developed negative voice, so I have had to use tools and techniques to stop that. I never would have become a successful entrepreneur if I couldn't learn to self-soothe. And at one point, that was what I would have said was my secret power. That my secret power in business was I can self-soothe faster than anybody else.
All right, focus on value. Only value is sustainable. You want to make sure that you're delivering value at every touch point. Your customer service should deliver value. Your marketing message should deliver value. Your advertising in and of itself should deliver value. Your ads should be served to the people who, even though they can skip it after 4 seconds, they don't. That's when you're actually delivering value.
People used to ask me like, oh, how do you get rid of the negative voice? I'm like, I don't know that you want to. Like the negative voice is a powerful reminder to practice gratitude. It's also a good reminder that maybe something is wrong. Maybe you are doing something wrong and you should adjust and you should rethink.
I was just about to say that sometimes your negative voice is what protects you. Sometimes. Not all the time, but there can be times when it's protecting.
In fact, I'll say it like this. It probably does protect you all of the time, but it's so repetitive that you touch this issue and now we're into the 9,000th replay of this. That's where it becomes stupid. And so the one thing, yep, cool, got it. I do need to work on that. You're absolutely right. And then just letting it go, right? And not clinging onto it, not beating yourself up over it and all that stuff. But it has a use, which is why it's so powerfully with us.
I love inspiration and motivation, but it is the neurological equivalent of candy. It's rad, it has its place, but everyone, because those just happen to be fleeting neurological states, you just have to find something that's way more grounded. You need a mission, you need a grand why, you need to know what it is. And this is not a discovery, it's a thing you decide. I decided. Now, because I tell it as a story, people think, oh, it was unavoidable. He meets this kid, Rashawn, and that coupled with all the people that he worked with at Quest, it's sort of inevitable that he decides that he's going to build impact theory and try to change culture to give everyone an empowering mindset. Yeah, well, literally a year before I decided to found impact theory, my mission in life was to end metabolic disease. So it's like you decide and then you point yourself at something. Nothing is ever going to feel right. Like, this is what I was put on earth to do. It won't feel that way until about a year or 2 years after you've been saying that's what you're going to do, that's what you're committed to, and actually acting in accordance with that. And then you'll be like, yeah, this actually is my mission.
Be transparent. It's a new world order. Man, when I was coming up, you didn't be transparent. You put a marketing message out. You spun that. Like, you tried to be as close to the truth as you could, but you didn't worry about transparency. But these days, consumers expect transparency. They want to know who you are. They want to know what you're doing. They want to know what it means to support you, because it's not enough that your product is good. They want to know that your company stands for something. But it's also incredibly meaningful to your employees. You want to keep top quality talent around for a long time. You want to make sure that they know what's going on in the company.
For the person who's stuck, for the guy or gal who's in the cubicle, who hates their job, is in a dysfunctional relationship, is in debt, whatever the case may be, desperately wants a way out, a way forward, a lifeline. Where does that process begin for you? Like, what is the advice that you give that person?
So it begins with believing or acknowledging that humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. So the thing that has made us the apex predator is not that we're stronger. It's not even that we're smarter. In fact, the quote often attributed to Darwin is that, oh, it's the survival of the fittest. He actually didn't say that. What he did say was, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but rather the most adaptive to change. Now, the reason that humans are the apex of all apexes is because we are the most adaptive species to change. So if you know that, then it becomes infinitely less important who you are today. And what matters is, who do you want to become? And what price, and the price being the time and energy that you're going to put into acquiring the skills to become that person. So imagine the person that you want to be, how would they act? And then start acting like that. If the person that you want to be would leave their job and, regardless of whether they had a safety net, burn the ships and go after something new, then that's what you should do. If the person that you want to be would start working nights and weekends because they very much value having a stable income that they can provide for their family or themselves, whatever, but are going to be disciplined and spend nights and weekends to get the skill set to go be more valuable somewhere else or to start their own company, whatever, then do that.
How do you process issues? Do you have a system on what you go through? Something happens, something comes up in your brain. Is there a step process you go through?
Yes.
What is it?
Starts with a goal. So what is my goal? Well, first it starts with clearing the emotion, because probably whatever I was told just had some emotion. I recenter myself. The thing that I probably repeat to myself the most is, you can do anything you set your mind to on a long enough timeline. So I know I can learn anything. So if the thing that hits me is overwhelming because I'm scared, I don't know how to do it, You can do anything you set your mind to. So at the end of this thinking through is going to be the question, are you willing to set your mind to it or not? And then I identify, okay, what's my goal? Does this move me towards my goal, yes or no? I think through the process of, has somebody done it? Is there already a well-laid path from where I'm at to actually completing this? Which is how I decided that we were going to take on Disney, because looking at the only studio ever in the history of time to be disciplined enough to only tell one kind of story from 1,000 different angles, so much so that they gave birth to Americana, is Disney. No other studio. Everyone else is all over the map. If I say I'm going to go see a Sony movie or a Paramount movie, you don't know anything about it. But if I say I'm going to go see a Disney movie, you already know something. So their name brand means something. So I could see, oh, there's a path from where I'm at to the impact that I want to have. So I throw that out just as a reminder of the path that I'm walking, more than I have some particular obsession with Disney.
Fascinating. And by the way, in your mind, do you see it already, that vision becoming a reality?
No question.
No question. No question about it.
For sure. And look, I have days of where I'm like, how the am I actually going to do this? But then you come back to, you can learn anything you set your mind to, so just keep marching forward.
Your mind begins to lay down patterns over time. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So if you, let's say you want to do public speaking, and you get nervous every time you're about to public speak, then you begin to develop this Pavlovian response of anxiety as you go to speak. But you could interrupt that pattern. You could find ways, whether it's taking a much more confident posture, which there's all kinds of amazing research on how just your posture, changing your posture, creates a different internal reality. Going back to you're creating the state that you're in. If you're sitting like this and you're allowing your face to take on this really droopy, sad posture, it's very different. What you feel is very different than if you take an open, confident posture. If you hold your face in a very optimistic, upbeat, I dare you, try to be really pissed off and laugh out loud. It just doesn't work. Understanding that all of that stuff is intentionality at play. It's you choosing what you think. It's you choosing what you believe. It's you choosing what you feel. And all of that stuff has a material impact on the world around you. Take meditation. I eschewed meditation for years. I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. I tried it, didn't make any sense to me until someone explained what I was really doing was gaining control over my autonomic nervous system. Because right now, so much of your life happens in the subconscious. The vast majority of the data that your brain processes is done subconscious. In fact, the conscious mind is the last person to know. If you guys have seen David Eagleman and what he talks about, how there's all this neurological activity going on, things that are known, things that are discarded, things that are moved towards, and the last person to know about it is your conscious mind. Despite the fact that he's going to take credit for all of it, your conscious mind is actually the last to know. So being able to take control of the autonomic nervous system is so powerful. It's going to allow you to center yourself before giving a speech. It's going to allow you to calm yourself before taking a test. It's going to allow you to perform at a higher level. Take the Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs teach breathing exercises. The Navy SEALs teach meditative practices, because when you get into a combat situation and things are flying and moving really fast and it is literally a life or death situation, you've got to learn to calm your autonomic nervous system. And if you can't do that, if you can't lower your rate of breathing, if you can't calm your heart rate, if you can't push the blood back into your prefrontal cortex so that you can make the right decisions and quickly, you're screwed. So learning that this is all intention, learning that your brain is housed in a shell and it never sees the light of day, it never actually encounters sound. It encounters electrical and chemical signals, and from that it paints the best version of reality that it can. But it isn't the total reality, and it isn't objective. Once you accept that, once you get that there's even a crack in that door of subjectivity and that you can control that subjectivity, then all of a sudden your beliefs become things to control and manipulate, to move and construct around something that serves you. List the beliefs that you have about yourself and put them in two different sides. On one side, I want you to list the things that empower you and move you forward. On the other side, I want you to list the things that demotivate or demean you and move you away from your goals. And then I want you to look at the balance. My guess is most of you have more beliefs about yourself that are detrimental, that make you less of who you are, than you have on the positive side of things that make you
bigger, that make you more confident, that give you the courage and the audacity to move forward. Once you realize both of those are fake, both of those are merely a representation that your mind has chosen to give you, and they're not objectively true, then you can realize, hey, I can change these. I can choose to believe things that empower me. I can choose to ignore things that move me backwards or change them. But it's all a construct. Get control of your mind. It's so powerful. In fact, the most powerful form of mind control is control over one's own mind. You are, first of all, never going to be right all the time, yet you have to move forward as if you are right. You have to come to a conclusion about what is the most sure path to your goal and be marching down that path. This is advanced class shit, but you also have to be able to go, am I right? So at the same time, you're racing forward as fast as you can. You've got to occasionally check yourself and say, is this actually working? Is there data that I can look at? What empirical evidence do I have that I'm actually going in the right direction? Now, you want to know where I spend the vast majority of my time? It's in that. If I'm not actively executing, and even sometimes when I am actively executing, I'm doing these little checks. What's the data? What data points can I look at? So not like it feels right, not I want to do it. Is there data that I can look at that tells me I'm either going in the right direction or I'm not? So I have that feeling all the time. I'm trying actively to delude myself, since the people that are most delusional are the happiest. I'm trying to delude myself to make sure that I'm going with enthusiasm. I'm trying to delude myself that despite the fact that I know next to nothing of what I'm going to ultimately need to know in order to succeed, that I keep going. That is fundamental and critical. And then, whilst I'm deluding myself, I'm checking to make sure that that delusion never gets out of hand, that I'm still grounded in reality, that I'm still checking myself against data. And all of those things are going to be what allow you to keep this from spilling over into something that's counterproductive, because there is a level of delusion that's useful, and then there's a level of delusion that is, it's going to break you down, it's going to take you in the wrong direction. So you've really got to check yourself against that. Now, getting good at that is not easy, but leaning on data. What is the external world telling you? And not being afraid to see that the external world is telling you that you're going in the wrong direction, and then being able to pivot.
I own a nutrition company, but I am not a thought leader. I'm an influencer. I have a thought leader that I trust, that I listen to, happens to be my business partner. But I'm the one that then translates that for the masses. So when you're trying to build a community, the person you're looking for, at the top, you want to make sure the thought leaders believe in your product. So you're going to send it to them. You're going to explain it to them. You're going to make sure that your product is real, because they will smell BS a mile away. Now, if they're into it, and then you go after the influencers, who will then ask the thought leaders what they think. Thought leaders will give it the green light. The influencers then will begin telling the masses. Influencers in my world are people with six-pack abs. They're the guy at the gym. They're the girl at the beach in the bikini. People that other people walk up to and say, whoa, what did you do to get in such great shape? And we wanted to make sure their answer was, I ate a Quest bar. And that was how we grew the business. And we wrote individualized letters to a bunch of influencers and a bunch of thought leaders saying, hey, we know who you are, which, by the way, we were very sincere. It was all real. We know who you are. We think this product brings value to you and the people that follow you, and we just want you to talk about it. If you hate it, tell people you hate it, and if you love it, tell them you love it. All right, you want to find your 1,000 screaming fans. The 1,000 screaming fans are those influencers that are going to get attention for you. Identifying them, most people think of these people as getting to your 1,000 screaming fans for you. But what they should be thinking about is this. Now, I'm sure most of you knew the people in the previous slide, and I'm sure most of you don't know any of the people in this slide. But this woman here, anybody know who Jenna Marbles is? Show of hands. I hear a couple of yeses. There we go. All right, Jenna Marbles has a daily reach of 20 million people. That's bigger than the biggest show on TV. That's crazy. This is the world of social. It seems hidden to most people over 35, but it is in plain sight. These are the people that you're going to be going after. Jenna Marbles, we sent her dogs' sweatshirts and a whole stack of our product. Now, why did we send her dog sweatshirts? Because her dogs are little chihuahuas, they're skinny as hell, and they always look cold. So we had some custom-made sweatshirts sent to her. She loved them so much, she started promoting the bars and showing people what we had sent her and thanking us. Now, no money exchanged hands. It was just us doing something that she would think was cool, that her followers would think was cool, and we got to tap into that reach. That's the power of social. I won't belabor these points. Social is still, despite what you may think, largely free. It's real-time connection, raw feedback. Think 30 years ago how much you would have paid for real-time feedback from your actual customers, written right to you, telling you if they think you're amazing or a jerk or whatever they may think. It's absolutely incredible. And they want you to respond and win them back over. It is amazing. It lets you test things rapidly, which is amazing, and it lets you build a community very rapidly.
So you need something else that's going to get you off the hook. And it has to be that core belief system in your life. A belief system that you put in place when you were emotionally sober. And you said to yourself, I'm making a pledge. I do and believe that which moves me towards my goals, period. Not when it's convenient, always. And that becomes the guiding light in my life. If the guiding light in your life is that you only do and believe that which moves you towards your goals, when you get into that loop of beating yourself up and thinking that you're worthless or that you're never going to make it, remember that. That belief does not serve you. And you don't do things that don't serve you. And not to rat anybody out, but do you know how many people just today have broke down in tears in front of me? And the punchline is always the same. They don't think they're going to make it. They become convinced they're more lost than other people. They're less capable than other people. That while other people are going to have these beautiful lives, not them. Here's the irony. Everyone feels that way. Everyone goes through moments of doubt and despair. So you need something to protect your mindset against that loop because it will chip away at you. And the belief is very simple. You don't do things that don't serve you.
People have got to reject this notion that they have to be protected from the outside and putting all their time and energy into that. Be the change you want to see in the world. If you want to see people strong enough to withhold a better weight, then don't worry about trying to fix systems. Just get tough. Watch how people respond to you. Watch how your kids look up to you. Watch how your family members look up to you. Watch how people turn to you and want help. We have an innate desire to get strong. We don't have an innate desire to have something else protect us. All of us. If two buttons, man. One of them is you're such a badass, nothing can ever hurt you. You get it. You know how to figure it out. You fight your way out of anything. Or a magic fairy will follow behind you and just waft things away. The terrifying thing is, this button, the magic fairy, is going to get pressed a fuck of a lot more than this button. But this button, no one dies of suicide with this button. This button, race towards suicide and depression. And if you want to know why we're having a pandemic of that, and I don't want to cheapen it because it's largely microbiome and there's all kinds of health things that are going on, I'm not taking that away. But on the mental side of what's driving a lot of people not believing in that is we're just culturally reinforcing that like we're stuck, we're trapped, there's nothing we can do, that people don't understand that fulfillment has to be earned. You can't tell someone to just love themselves. You have to tell them how they earn self-respect. You have to tell them that doing hard that you don't want to do and doing it anyway, that's exactly how you gain self-worth. You can't just tell someone to feel worthy. Man, I want to more than the next person. Like I spend an inordinate amount of my time every week talking to a camera, trying to help people, to touch their lives, for real. Like my wife and I made so much money, we could have actually bought an island and retired and never worked again. But that's not what I want. Like I want that fulfillment. I want to do hard. I want to touch people's lives. I want to lift them up. I actually want to transform and change them. The single most important part in learning to be honest with yourself is to accept that you must have self-esteem. And the problem is most people build their self-esteem around something stupid. So most people build their self-esteem around being right, being good, being smart, being worthy, and they see all of those as permanent traits. And so anything that challenges them being smart, which is my big one, oh God, even to this day, if I really want to get into a bad place, I'll just go hang around people that are just legitimately smarter than me and then focus on how cool being smart is. Now I can be around them when I value myself for being the learner, but the second I let myself slip into just wanting to be cool for being smart, then being around those people is like getting kicked in the face. It sucks, man. And so I went through this phase in my life that I call the king of remedial jobs phase. And I so this is post film school, post like realizing that I don't have talent. I just need to be smart, man. I just need to build myself back up by being smart. And so I would apply for jobs. Like I sold video games retail, and I sold insurance door to door. I did anything that I could where I knew that the person interviewing me at some point during the interview was going to say, why are you applying for this job? Like, you're too smart for this. And be like, I'm right where I need to be, which is crazy and sad, but absolutely true. And so I did that for a couple years. And in that phase, I just didn't want my intelligence to be challenged. So flash forward now, I'm working with these two entrepreneurs. They hire me as a copywriter. I'm in an entrepreneurial environment for the first time, and they're clearly smarter than me. That isn't even up for debate. And I'm arguing with them for this idea because I needed to win. I couldn't take another time where it's like, they're smarter than me. So I was like, all right, I'm going to win on this idea. And somewhere in the argument, I realized I was wrong. And there was a voice in my head screaming, you're wrong, dude. You are wrong. You know you're wrong. Shut up. Like, stop pushing for this. What are you doing? And I kept going, and I finally like whittled them down, and they finally just gave up. And so they said, yep, we'll do it your way. Fine, whatever. And right then and there, it's the one time in my life that was truly a lightning rod moment where my life can be divided before and after. And that moment was realizing that I was telling everybody that I wanted to get rich, but the way I was acting was like I just wanted to feel smart. And I thought, hey, no judgment. I'm totally cool. Whichever it is, like, we can craft a life where that will be wonderful. So if what you really want is to just be smart and to feel smart all the time, you have to quit. You've got to get out of this environment because they make you feel stupid all the time. And that's not a great place to be. Feeling badly about yourself all the time for any reason, even if it's self-inflicted, it's not a bad scenario, or it's not a good scenario. You've got to get out of it. So I was like, okay, so that's option one, get out of this scenario, go back to being the king of remedial jobs. Or if you actually want to get rich, start acting in accordance with it. Start making decisions based on that. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to give up my self-esteem. I'm going to have to like stop worrying about feeling good about myself. And I was like, ooh, that is clearly a losing proposition. There's no way to come in and feel horrible every day and think that I will have the energy to see this through. So I was like, God, what else could I do? And I was like, well, I guess I could build my self-esteem around something that is sort of impervious to being around people that are smarter than me. And what would that be? Being the learner. And I thought, okay, well, I could choose to do that. I could choose to build my self-esteem around being not right, but finding the right answer. Not being smart, but working hard to learn. And so that became just like the core of my existence. I decided in that moment, I'm going to start valuing myself for how rapidly I can admit when I'm wrong. How much I learn, how much time and energy I put into learning. And once I switched that and I switched my identity and my behaviors around to being the learner, then all of a sudden, everything changed. And that's when I went on hockey stick growth. Because all of a sudden, if we were arguing and I realized you were right, I'd be like, dude, he's right. You're totally right. I see it. Oh my God, thank you so much. And so I started earning a reputation of I never just backed into a corner. I never argued for something just because it was my idea. I was legitimately on the hunt to find the right answer. And so now I'm getting the internal feedback of, hey, you said that you were going to always focus on being the learner. You're doing it. You said you'd always admit when you're wrong. And I would try to shorten that timeline down. So I wasn't like taking an hour to finally admit it, or even 3 minutes, that I was trying to get to it like, dude, if I realize I was wrong, 3 seconds, 30 seconds max, like I'm, just finally saying it. Look, you're totally right. I'm with you. Yep, I see it. And then the world was like, whoa, working with this guy is awesome. He's not trying to take credit for other people's ideas. He will change on what he was saying in a heartbeat when he fights for what he believes in, but the second you can convince him, he's convinced, and then he moves on. And it just became a really awesome environment. Wow. So that was hugely transformative, but it forces you to constantly be on the lookout for where am I wrong. So my wife and I had tried to start our first business. Well, we did start our first business, and it made money, but it made very little money. It was a photography business, and that gave me that entrepreneurial drive. Like, I wanted to do it. I had a little tinge of it when I was selling for prepaid legal, and then really felt it when I was doing the photography. But I just looked at the dollars, and I'm like, this never goes anywhere. I can never make enough money. I didn't have the words to explain it, but it was because I was time for money. And you can't break the wealth equation if you're dealing in time for money. So I was like, all right, I want something more, but I don't know what that more is. And then two of the people that came through and saw me speaking about filmmaking were these two entrepreneurs. And they were the two things I'd always promised myself as a kid that I would have is that one day I would have six-pack abs and one day I would be rich. Those were my two promises. Yeah. And that really guided my life in like a very sincere and intense way for a long time. And they come across my path. Not only are they wildly successful in business, but they're yoked. And I was like, whoa. So these guys are like, yo, we're gonna work together someday. And people would tell me that all the time. And I was like, yeah. And not really believed it. And they called and said, look, we're starting this new company and why don't you come be a copywriter? We settle for employees, but we're always looking for partners. And you can have any role in this company that you want. You just have to become the right person for that role. And
that's really their pitch.
Yeah. And I saw him make that pitch to everybody. Dozens of people.
Wow.
Dozens. And nobody did anything with it. And I was like, what do people not see like what they're offering? And everyone was telling me, they're full of shit, dude. Like, can you not see? Like, these guys are just trying to take advantage of you. And I thought, even if they are, like, what do I have to lose exactly? Like, as long as my payroll checks are clearing and they're not doing anything unethical, I don't quite understand the risk. So everyone was like freaking out, telling me that I shouldn't do it. And I was just like, oh, wow, this seems too, like, it's too self-evident to me that I could always go back to teaching and that I might as well try this. And if it sucks, then I'll go back.
What's this fascination you have with the Matrix movie?
I am fresh out of film school, about a year out of film school. So The Matrix came out in 99, I graduated in 98. So I'm hopelessly lost at this point. And I go to a comic convention, love comic books, and I come around the corner at this divey little comic convention. Like, if you're thinking San Diego Comic-Con, this was not that. This was like a divey little thing. And I come around the corner and there is Carrie-Anne Moss, Keanu Reeves, Joe Pantoliano, Joe Silver, the producer, like just this whole panel of people. I'm like, what? And so this is like, I mean, film is the center of my life at this point. Yeah. I'm like, I can't believe these people are here. I had no idea. Yeah. And they're like, hey, we're handing out tickets to the premiere tonight. You can see it on the back lot of Warner Brothers.
No way.
And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So I go, and I'm waiting in line, and as I'm waiting in line, literally just like in the back alley of Warner Brothers, the doors burst open, people come out screaming, and I was like, what is going on? And so I plug my ears because I don't want to hear if they're gonna give spoilers, and they all go off, but I could tell.
Something special.
Yeah, they were into this thing. Go in, sit down, we're watching it, and you know that moment where Agent Smith comes up to the cops, very beginning in the movie, and he said, I told you to wait until we got here. And he said, oh, we can handle one little girl. No, officer, your men are already dead. And they cut up to, she jumps up, and in that moment, the entire audience all at once screams, ah, like they just go nuts. And I was like, that has never happened to me before, ever in a movie. There was just something so captivating. And then ultimately, The Matrix is the perfect metaphor for the human experience. It is about a guy who from the day he shows up has the same abilities as the day at the end. But once he learns to believe in himself, then he can actually do more. Even though he had the same potential, he's able to do more at the end. And I was like, that's life. Like, you've got this potential, but if you don't believe in yourself, you're never gonna put in the work to actuate it.
I'm not afraid to be audacious because I know that you're never going to exceed what you're aiming at. So your hope is to hit some percentage of what you're aiming at. So I might as well dream massive. And one, it excites me. And then two, I'm not afraid of the failure. So once you have that, like, oh, it's exciting for me to dream big, and I'm hyper conscious of, you break it down in small pieces. Like, I'm not worried about building theme parks and all that stuff right now. What I'm doing right now today is make a good comic, put out a good interview show. That's it. That's what my life consists of. Stay in business, be profitable. Like, those are the things that I think about. So I keep my goals, my immediate term goals, very manageable, but I make sure that they're feeding naturally into the grand vision. But I don't get scared or lost and thinking, oh my God, I have to do all that. Nope. Right now, today, I need to read a script. I need to make sure it's okay. I need to authorize it to be drawn. That's it. That's today. And as long as you're able to focus on that and get good at that, and then just always push yourself to make your skill set better and better and better, as long as it's leading towards that thing and you have clarity on where you're trying to go so that you make sure the skills you're acquiring will actually lead you there, you'll be fine.
That quest went so fast wasn't just because we had done something to our minds and gotten to the point where we were so angry that we were going to push this forward no matter what. It was understanding the timing of the marketplace and the technologies that were emerging. And the technology that was emerging in 2009, when we first started thinking about the company, everybody thought Facebook was a joke. Everybody thought it was a huge distraction. And what we understood was it was just a megaphone. We didn't pass judgment on it. We just knew it was a megaphone. And it was a free megaphone. And if we could give them reason to say something good within a couple of minutes of an interaction with us, they could have a global audience and tell people about that. So we saw that the timing was right there. And we also understood that people want to have impact. I believe the very meaning of life is to find out how many skills you can acquire that have utility and then put that utility to the test in service of someone else. It's what the ancient Greeks called techne. I've worked my ass off for this set of skills. They are unique to me, and they help other people. And in being able to help other people was something that I worked very hard for. I feel good about myself. And I will make you guys one promise right here today. The game you're playing, please listen to this, so that you don't end up wasting years of your life like I did mine. The game that you're playing is not success. The game that you're playing is not money. The game that you're playing is brain chemistry. It's about fulfillment. The only thing ultimately that's ever going to matter in your life is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. My father-in-law once gave me this advice. He was the first person I met that had really been successful, and he said, what you want to do is know more about any situation than anyone else in the world. And I actually remember what I said to him. I said, yeah, my boss doesn't really think like that. I have since apologized to my father-in-law for giving me such an amazing piece of information and me doing nothing with it for like 6 years. But once I understood that the only path to excellence is to truly become an expert. The only path to excellence is to actually get good at something. These days, in a hyper-connected world where within minutes of an interaction with you, your product, whatever, someone can have a global audience and tell people what they think, that product better be awesome. But the great news is, the world's been democratized now. You no longer have to have a $150 million ad budget in order to cut through the clutter. In our first 8 months, we were profitable at month 6. In our first 8 months, we didn't invest more than $10,000 because we had a product that actually delivered value. Our marketing message delivered value. And if you focus on that, if you focus on making something that's better than what other people are doing, now you really can cut through the noise very, very quickly. And you gotta grind, baby, grind. That was me for almost 2 years. People see where the company's gotten, they see me up giving speeches, but what they don't see is that in the middle of the night, my hands used to wake me up cramping closed. Because all day, I was making protein bars. And in the very beginning, we were running the technology company during the day and then going and making protein bars by hand at night with rolling pins and handheld blades that we cut the bars and then wrapped them 3 at a time. We wrapped them 3 at a time. We would make 1,200 bars. I think 9 of us made 1,200 bars over a 6 or 7 hour period. Now in a day, we make 1.5 million. But that's where it starts. It starts with the willingness to persist long after it's boring. It starts with the ability to focus on your end customer long after you're exhausted. It starts with the ability to think about those people that you really want to serve when you're scared and have no idea how you're going to pull it off. But you chose to believe that you could do it. You chose to believe that. And because you chose to believe that, you were able to achieve excellence. This is the central mantra of my life. It doesn't matter who you are today. It really doesn't. So if you feel like you're incapable of something, maybe you are today. But just because you're incapable of something today doesn't mean that you're not capable of learning that thing. So it's not about who you are today. It's about who you want to become and the price you're willing to pay to get there. And I promise you, the day that you're willing to pay any price, you'll achieve what you want to achieve. I knew exactly what I wanted. I had my why. I had my goal, and it was very specific. And this is the thing about goals. They have to be incredibly specific. And my goal was to end metabolic disease. Not sell a lot of protein bars, that was not the goal. I wanted to end metabolic disease, and that informed every choice that we made as entrepreneurs every time that we had to answer a hard question, one that might impact profitability, or how late we were gonna have to work, or what we were gonna have to do, and it almost always was difficult, including, by the way, we had to become our own manufacturers, which we did not want to do. We wanted to outsource it. We just wanted to be marketers, but nobody would make the bar for us. Or they would, but they said that we had to add sugar to it. And we asked a simple question: will that help end metabolic disease, yes or no? If yes, we'll do it. If no, we won't. And it wouldn't, so we didn't. It starts with that specific goal. And then because I had my why, my hands cramping closed in the face of doing something to save my mom and my sister, it was not a hard choice. In fact, I wouldn't have been able to look myself in the eye and say I was not able to help them because it was hurting my hands. Right? It sounds ridiculous when you say it like that, but most people don't have a personal tie to what they're doing. Mother Teresa has an amazing quote: "No one will act for the many, but people will act for the one." And so as you guys go into your jobs and you think about what you're trying to do, find a way to stop making it a job. Find a way to make it a calling, a vocation, something that really meets that why, your desire to connect or do something great for people.
What it's really going to take for you to get to that next level is to understand that the person that you are has gotten you as far as it's ever going to get you. So you've got to become a new person. You literally have to adapt. Now, the great news is, like we talked in my first talk, that is what humans are wired to do. Humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. The reason that we are the only species that you can find in every corner of the globe. At one point, James Cameron was literally at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. We have sent human beings to the moon. We are going to send human beings to Mars. And the reason we're going to be able to do that is we can adapt to our surroundings. There was a woman who swam the Bering Strait. Really think about this. The Bering Strait is the space between Russia and Alaska. So you can imagine it's not quite a swim in the Bahamas. To make the swim, she had to change her fat from what's known as white adipose tissue to brown fat. Brown fat is more thermogenic, so it actually kicks off heat. To do that, for over a year, she had to expose herself routinely to cold temperatures, sleeping in the winters in Alaska with the window open. But in doing that, she actually put her body through an adaptation response. Her body got the message, adapt or die. So it adapted. And when you're willing to put yourself under those kinds of stresses to become that new thing you want to become, to be the new person that you want to be, to go farther than anyone you know has ever gone, to be the GOAT, it is possible. But it demands a price. It demands a price. And what this weekend is about, it's about you deciding for yourself, where do you want to go? And what price are you willing to pay to get there? There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. There's just clarity. There's just clarity. Don't judge yourself if you don't want to play on a world stage. Don't judge yourself if you're not willing to pay an extraordinary price. Just get the clarity of what you want and what you need to do to get there. When you do that, then you're going to be able to construct a narrative about who you are.
If somebody's giving you advice about something that they have not done in their own life, then they have basically a 0 believability score. And somebody who has a 0 believability score shouldn't be pushing their idea like they know something. They should be asking a lot of questions. Now, when you're talking to somebody that's done it, Ray Dalio's saying is 3 times or more. If they've successfully done something 3 times or more, then they have believability in that area. So you want to find people that have believability, that really know what they're talking about, and then you should listen. You should ask a lot of questions. You should really come to understand it. If they haven't done that, they may still have amazing ideas, but what you need, because sometimes a novice has really fresh insights because they're just not stuck in the dogmatic ways of thinking that experts usually get into, but you need to be thinking about it differently. So rather than listening to their conclusions, you should be trying to understand their methodology. How did they get there? What is their process, their reasoning for making the statement that they're making? Now, if their reasoning is sound, then their conclusion may very well be worthwhile, but you have to understand their reasoning. So one of those two things. So either they are an expert in that area and thusly you should listen, or they are not, and you should only be thinking about what their process was to get to that conclusion. And then you have to be able to derive your own assessment as to whether or not you should listen to them. There's not going to be anything more empirical than that.
Social media is going to allow you to have real, meaningful relationships with your customers. I will tell you one very fast. In the very early days of Quest, when all of us had to go out and actually make the bars, I'm out making bars, our chief marketing officer's out making bars, like everybody's out there. There would be periods of time where we wouldn't respond to somebody on Facebook, but this one woman started responding. And we thought, wow, that's so weird. Like, did somebody create a fake account? Like, is that one of you guys? And everyone's like, no, man, we didn't do that. That's a real person. And she would tell people like, oh, don't worry, I'm sure they'll get back to you quickly. They're a really great company. And we were and this is like early 2010. We're like, what is happening? And so we reached out and said, hey, we want to put you on payroll. She's like, I don't want to be on payroll. And I'm like, whoa, okay, now I'm getting freaked out. Like, what do you want? And she was like, I just want you to continue to deliver a service. I'm a nutritionist and I use your bars with a lot of people. I just want to make sure that you're around. So we developed this really cool relationship with her. We all got to know her. She held us to a standard. She was not always nice. She was always fair, but she wasn't always nice. If we were doing something poorly from a product standpoint, like weights and measures will let you ship product that's heavy. You just can't ship light, okay? So imagine you get your bag of Doritos. Your bag of Doritos is going to be heavy. It's never going to be light. Now, so we're thinking, okay, cool, we have to comply with weights and measures, but we're a health and fitness company. So people are like, if I'm buying 60 grams and that's what I have in my diet plan, I want to make sure I'm eating 60 grams and not 65. And so she would call us out on it. So we ended up buying a piece of equipment because of that relationship that we had with this woman that we'd never met. And then one day she went silent. We wrote to her mom, hey, is everything okay? And her mom said she passed away. She was like 28. And I got like really emotional, and I'd never met her. And I'm not like that guy, but I got legitimately emotional. And I wrote a manifesto, and I said to everyone in the company, basically, we exist to serve these people. Every one of them is trying to do something that we may know nothing about, and they're using our products. And so we started celebrating her. Her name's Joy Ramita. We've been doing it for 4 years now. The Joy Ramita Superfan Award. We bring somebody in that's been amazing to the community. We just give them a big blowout party at our headquarters, give them behind the scenes access to cool stuff, just to say thank you. And that's when we really realized it may not be the kind of relationship you have with your mom or your brother or your sister or your spouse, but it's meaningful, man, in a way that business relationships haven't been since like the local general store, and you saw the same people come in every day. It really is like, if you can flip that switch in your mind and see it as something beautiful, I'm telling you, it will open you up to a whole new way of interacting with your customers, because there's a lot of amazing stuff going on in your communities that you may not even know about, or that you could really feed into and build into something amazing. And if you stay focused on it being a community of people that are supporting themselves, each other, and your company, then you can do some pretty incredible things.
Just being honest, even when it sucks. Because let me tell you how many times it's going to be where if you just lied, oh God, it would be so much easier and you would probably get away with it. But the way that I explain lying to people is you get away with it 50% of the time. And so it tempts you to think it's a good strategy. But the other 50% of the time, it is cratering trust. And once you can't trust the person, all hope is lost. And there's nothing more beautiful than being in a relationship with somebody who makes you feel like they're number one, and that you totally trust them. And Lisa wrote this Instagram post about how she could see a photo of me with my arm around a woman, or resting my head on a woman, or hugging her, or whatever. And it wouldn't even make her radar to question it. So that's the fun for us, is having that level of trust. Now, it's like, I think it's Buffett that said, you spend your entire life building your reputation, only takes 5 seconds to lose it. So it's like, we're so careful. For 18 years, we've been earning trust with each other. So like, dude, so especially when I was back at Quest, and it was, women would come and flirt and hit on me because they wanted something, wanted to be sponsored by the company or whatever. And I was around literal bikini models like all the time. And so if ever there was going to be a moment of insecurity for my wife, it would have been that period. A, she wasn't insecure. And B, the thought of throwing away 18 years of shared experience, of all that trust and everything, sex is like rad and super exciting and I love it the most. But like, compared to what I would have to give up for something like that, it just doesn't rate on the radar. So, and by the way, something like I'm saying now, which most people would hide from their spouse, yeah, of course I find other people attractive. What are you talking about? Like, we just openly talk about that. Like, she'll nudge me and be like, oh my God, don't you think she's hot? It's like, that's just, we set up early on in the relationship to be aggressively ourselves. And one thing that we both were really honest about was, I was like, look, it is human nature. You are going to find other guys attractive. And I will actually trust you more if you admit when you find somebody attractive than if you say something stupid like, I only have eyes for you. Oh, really? You're the only human in all of history to like, transcend their human nature? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then that's a super fragile place to be, because what happens if I get older? What happens if I get injured or scarred? Like, then I'm really supposed to believe that suddenly you're more attracted to somebody with a scar than somebody without? Like, it doesn't make sense. So we all live in this fragile bubble of, well, as long as they lie to me, it's okay. And as long as I'm willing to believe, and even though secretly I know it's a lie, and then it's the more pious than now, like, oh my God, she's thinking all these nice things about me, but I'm actually finding other people attractive and I'm just lying about it. And so then you're like, wait, if I'm lying about it, is she lying about it? And so it erodes all that trust. So from the jump, we were like, look, you're going to find other people attractive. I'm going to find other people attractive. But let me introduce you to this magical word called commitment. Now, I'm with you because I love you, because I respect you, but I'm also with you because I'm committed to you. And so you don't have to worry that I'm going to be looking over my shoulder for a more attractive woman. There are going to be more attractive women than you, for sure, especially as you age. Who the f*** cares? You're my wife. We have shared an experience. We've shared a life. We've built this around each other. And commitment means something to me, going back to having that code that you live by. And the rules and the code that I live by, I'm never going to betray that.
Yeah.
So it's like, we've always said, I may break up with you one day, because I'm not saying that like, oh, there's nothing you could do that would make me break up with you. For sure there is. But I'm never going to cheat on you. I may come and say, I'm breaking up with you because I'm going to go have sex with somebody else, but I'm absolutely not going to go have sex with somebody behind your back. Never going to happen. So like, having that trust and knowing who the other person is, like, all that stuff is super meaningful. And look, there's just more and more and more stuff, but those are some big ones.
There's a gap between who you are today and who you will need to become in order to execute against your why. That thing in you that's burning, that you really care about enough to get across the finish line, that you care about enough to keep doing even when it's making your hands cramp closed, that you care about enough even when you've got to come in and work between rival gang members. It's the thing that you care about enough that you really will work so hard that the rival gang members fall in line behind you because you're leading by example. Thank you. And that became my mission every day. I'm going to show up and outwork everybody. I'm going to be the first one here. I'm going to be the last one to leave. And most importantly, guys, I really hope you were listening to Robert Cialdini, whose books I have read and all but memorized. The key is, you want to connect with them. You want them to fall in love with you. You want them to be inspired. You want them to feel better about themselves when they're around you than when they're not. And if you can pull that off, they will go to war for you.
Think about it. If somebody is going to come after you and they want to hurt your feelings, there's one thing every time they will reach for. That is something that is true. When people try to hurt you, they go for the most real thing, and they jab you right in your heart because they know it's going to hurt, because it's real, man. And that's mean, for sure, and it hurts, for sure. But if you think of it like this, when somebody's throwing a rock at you with the intention of hurting you, you can put your defenses up you will deflect that rock, never to be seen again, or you can lower your defenses, let it hit you in the face, knowing that it will hurt, but also knowing now at your feet is not a rock, it's a lump of gold. Because they've given you an insight into where you are weak. Now, once you know where you are weak, you can begin to build yourself. And that is my thesis on life. You get to build yourself in any direction you want, in any way, to become anything you want. There will be an extraordinary price to pay, but you can go in any direction.
Fulfillment is what matters. It is a neurochemistry state. The game that you're playing is not success, it is not money, it is not legacy, it is neurochemistry. It's feeling good about yourself right now, today, in this moment. Now, the absolute foundational building block to fulfillment is progress. Now, I don't mean progress in worldly pursuits. I mean humans are an active species that are absolutely designed to learn, adapt, and grow. We are the ultimate adaptation machine. Now, when nature wants us to do something, it incentivizes that thing with pleasure. So if we're the ultimate adaptation machine designed to learn, grow, and get better, then it's going to make that process intensely pleasurable. Now, what it doesn't incentivize is the obsession over where other people are, whether or not we have unique ideas, whether or not we're valuable. None of that is going to bring you joy, okay? As they say, comparison is the thief of joy. So, hey, if you really want to fuck with yourself, jump in the Instagram feed and look how other people are crushing it and obsess over that. If, on the other hand, you want to really have a deep and lasting sense of fulfillment, jump in the Instagram feed, find people that motivate and inspire you to be a better version of yourself, not to attain worldly success, but to actuate your potential, to ask yourself a very simple question: what is it that I am excited by? What am I motivated by? What jazzes me up, regardless of whether or not it jazzes anybody else up? And now I'm going to go get good at that thing. And that progress is the foundational building block of happiness.
How do you feel about yourself when you're by yourself? I know a lot of people that fear that quiet. I know a lot of people that don't want to be alone with themselves. And the reason they don't want to be alone with themselves is because they don't think they're worthwhile. They're not happy with who they are. That's what adaptation is about. If you're not happy with who you are, then let's step into the ownership of that. Let's remember that's our fault. There's no one else to blame for that. The people that did horrible things to you are not to blame for that. Because if they are, there's nothing you can do. But if you're the owner of that, in fact, don't even worry about the word blame. You're in control. That's what this is about. It's about retaining control. It's about knowing that you own your life. And at any time, if you want a different outcome, you can make different decisions. You can do different things. You can start a new narrative. And once you begin that new narrative, you realize the power that's in that to take you where you want to go.
The American dream is still alive for anybody if you're willing to learn and grow. First of all, if you're willing to accept you're not yet the person you need to be to execute at the highest level, you're willing to acknowledge your deficits and understand what skills you need, and then go out and relentlessly acquire those skills that have utility, and then be willing to put those skills to the test against something. For me, the test is business. It's the test I enjoy. It's not the test everyone enjoys. But that's what Quest was largely, me asking and answering the question, am I acquiring the right skills in order to end metabolic disease, yes or no? And if the answer was no, I changed.
As Epictetus said, he is a wise man who does not grieve for things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. And that's gratitude, isn't it? It's the very base decision that we all have to make. Are you grateful for the things that you have in your life, or are you always wanting more? And trust me, I get it. I understand people that strive for more. I understand people that want something bigger and better. But at the same time, if you allow yourself to only think about what you don't have, to only be striving for something more, that obsession will begin to overtake you. It will begin to corrode you. But ultimately, it's a choice. Ultimately, at any time, right now, in this moment, you can stop and think about what you have. You can put your attention on the things that you're grateful for and watch what it does. Watch what it does in that instance, the way that it changes you, the way that it changes your chemistry, your feelings in a moment can shift from negative and dark to beautiful, with nothing else changing around you, nothing but you deciding that you're going to focus on the things you're grateful for. Nothing but deciding that there are things in your life to be grateful for. And that is a decision. No matter what is happening in your life at any moment, right now, in the depths of a depression, in something going on terribly in your life, you could choose right now to think about the things you're grateful for. The breeze, a smile from somebody kind, a stranger who holds open a door for you, anything. But it's a choice. And as Einstein said, there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. And what choice are you making? What are you choosing to focus on right now? Do you let gratitude fill you up or not? And here's the critical part, and I want you to listen to this really well. Whatever you decide, whether you decide we live in a world of miracles or whether you decide we live in a world devoid of miracles, you are choosing one thing to the exclusion of the other. And when you focus on something that you're grateful for, when you look at those little moments in your life and choose to see them as grand miracles, even when it is only a gentle hand on your shoulder, even when it's only a kiss from somebody who you've kissed 1,000 times before, even when it is only holding the hand of somebody who needed their hand held, even when it's something that simple. It really is a miracle, that it really is something that can fill you. It really is something that will change your chemistry, bring a connection between two people, allow you to see a grander vista, or even just open a window and look out at the world and realize that you're alive, that this is all a miracle, that none of this is guaranteed, that every breath you take could be your last. And in that, you can choose to cherish what you have. In that, you can decide to focus on that you have a breath to take. And even when it's something that simple, when you train your mind to do that, when you train yourself to decide to see the beauty in that, then nobody can ever take it away from you. And no matter where you are, no matter what's going on in your life, you'll be able to rise up and feel the beauty that is being alive. So take a minute at the worst times in your life and focus on the things that you're grateful for.
So for 8.5 years, I'm doing that. I am working 7 days a week, ignoring my wife. At about the 6.5 year mark, my wife pulls me aside and says, "You're now damaging our marriage, and I'm not willing to continue like this." So I was like, all right, something's got to give. And that forced me to really look and say, I'm profoundly unhappy, and showing up every day chasing money just isn't actually who I am. And I need to do something that makes me feel alive in the moment. So it ends up being a cool part of my story, but what I want people to know is when the following thing happened, I was awash in shame. And so there I was, the guy going hard. By this point, I've worked my way up now. I'm the chief marketing officer of the company. I own 10% of it, all just through sweat equity. They made good on their promise. And I was so broken inside and so unhappy that I was like, I have to leave. I need to go back to filmmaking. I need to do something that in and of itself, like, I will love and be passionate about. And what I realized was the struggle is guaranteed, the success is not. Now, at that time, I was a multimillionaire on paper, but as you well know, being rich on paper is very different than having money in your bank account.
No doubt about it.
So I was rich on paper, I did not feel rich, and so I was like, what am I doing all of this for? So my wife and I talk, and I'm like, look, I know I promised I would make you rich, and I swear to God I will one day, but I'm gonna have to take a step backwards first, because I can't just muscle through like this. I'm just losing so many years of my life. I need to do something that if I'm gonna fail, at least I'm gonna fail loving what I'm doing. She was totally behind me. She said what are now famous words in our marriage. She said, I bet on you. I was like, that means a lot. So I go in and I quit. and I said, look, here's your equity back. I'm not going to cross the finish line, so I don't think I should get anything for this. So, take it and do your thing. And I'm going to go to Greece. We were going to move to Greece, and I'm going to write, and that's that. And they said, look, we could do this without you, but we don't want to. And so what would it take for us to keep working together? And I laid out a plan of, if whatever I'm going to be doing next, it's got to be around value creation. It's got to be around passion. It's got to be something that we would love every day, even if we were failing. I want to build community. I want to be myself. And I said, look, this thing that we now call social media, wasn't called that back then, but social media, I think it's going to change everything.
What year is that?
This is 2009.
Okay.
So I'm like, I think this is going to change everything, going to change the way that people do business. And actually, this probably was a little bit earlier than that. So the next company, I want to be transparent. I want our real personalities to shine through. I want people to see, like, we actually want good things for them. Yeah. And so that, for 3 very different reasons, became the core of what we wanted to do. And so we founded Quest Nutrition. Everyone told us we were crazy, that we were leaving technology, like the place where people actually get rich, and going into food, the place where you're in manufacturing, it's going to be small margins, you guys are never going to survive this. And so everyone thought we were dumb, but our thing was, we're never going to make decisions based on profitability again. We're going to be making it based on, like, actually adding value to people's lives, being passionate about what we do every day, and loving our lives. And so we actually made a promise to each of us, and we said, you're going to enjoy what you do on a day-to-day basis, simple as. And so if it's something weird, like when I started doing Inside Quest, fine. Like, even if it's not, like, we don't see the immediate ROI in the business, if you love it and that's a part of what's making you a complete and full human being, then let's do it. And so we got into really crazy stuff, but ended up being amazing because we made that promise to each other. So that was how all of that began. And then we just really lived up to it, about value creation, about not just trying to sell people on something, about building a real community to uplift people. And it just so happened that we had the right product at the right time, marketed in a totally new way. Because of my background in film, we were creating all of our own content in-house. We built an entire studio inside the company. We were shooting everything long before that was like a thing. It was like, we were doing that. And everyone was like, this is crazy. But then we grow by 57,000% in our first 3 years alone in manufacturing.
People don't have enough rules in their life for themselves. So for instance, I get out of bed in 10 minutes or less, doesn't matter. And I don't want to. That's why I have the rule. Because I went through,
calloused your mind.
Literally, I went through a period where I would lay in bed for 3 to 4 hours, awash in shame at my inability to get out of bed. And it just embarrassed me. And so I felt badly about myself. So I wanted to make a change. So I knew that I needed a bright line. So bright line, 10 minutes or less, you get out of bed. As soon as you realize you're awake, that's it. So, and the rule is more specific. It's like, I have to have had at least 5 hours of sleep. But once you put the rule in place, then you just live by it. And that's how you earn credibility. Like right now, I don't feel the way telling you that I want to feel. This is a good moment. He's on my team. I'm pointing at him. This is a good moment. So I'm saying this, and I don't feel good about saying it. Why? Because today, I don't know what happened. I got out of bed in 11 minutes. And I was so
You literally
pissed.
time it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from waking up to actually physically getting out of the bed?
Correct. My feet must be on the floor, and I must be standing up before it ticks over into the 11th minute. And today, I don't know what happened. I was aware of the time. I knew I needed to get up. And for whatever reason, one of the minutes just went faster than I thought. When I looked back, I was like, damn it. And so
I'm surprised you even made it here today then.
Right? Yeah. So now this comes into like knowing how to handle something like that. Like if you totally fall apart because you don't live up to one of your rules, you're violating another one of my rules, which is don't do anything that doesn't move you towards your goals. So it's like, yes, it is a part of my identity to confess this. So because I'm talking about it, I want to say it now to an audience. It's the only thing that will allow me to reset and be able to feel good about it again, because I don't lie. When I miss it, I own it.
Well, look, if your biggest problem is it took you 11 minutes to get out of bed,
sadly, that's not
10,
my biggest problem.
This is a high quality problem.
Right. Yes. Very true. But my thing is people don't have the rules. And so I have other rules. For instance, I wear a size 32 pant. That's it. And so
no matter what your waist is.
No. I won't let my waist get out of line with that. So I use the pants as a way to guide. Now I would go down if I got so lean that I was, a 31. That's not a problem. But I'm not going to allow myself to go up. And it's super tempting, like especially around Christmas. I don't try to hold abs through the winter. So during Christmas, like right now, I do not have abs. So, and I'm totally fine with that. I switch a different part of my mentality. During the holidays, my wife and I definitely celebrate with food. And it's amazing. And I love it the most. So, but if that celebration took me up to like 32s don't fit anymore, I got to cut back because I have a rule. So it's like, that's how I keep myself in a lane. I keep myself from getting into trouble. I know the things that I accept from myself and what I don't accept from myself. And it's all like stated. It's very clear.
Self-reward and self-punishment is really, really important.
Yes.
And I think that if people don't sort of automatically have the guilty thing, which they probably do, it's more a willingness to lean into that and to say, okay, this is actually going to serve me, this is going to work for me. And I actually do wonder sometimes, as somebody who now basically has a profession of giving advice, at least on the one side of what I do. And so I think a lot about like who should actually take my advice, because my advice is not going to lead to a carefree, easy life. Right. Lisa was just saying, she was laying in bed last night thinking about me, and she said, how the f- does he do it? Because there's just a level of things that I'm willing to take on, and one, I'm not even sure it's healthy for me, and two, I'm certainly not certain that it's healthy for other people. But what I do know is that I have a level of thrill and pleasurable obsession around it. So for me, it's fun. So when I think about the guilt or the momentary pain of f***ing something up, and you talk about me getting better as a speaker, it's like that journey is, it is a very simple journey that requires you though to really accept that you're not very good at things right now. Yes. And that's fine. And so a big key for me has always been to think of my life not through the lens of a moment. Mm-hmm. And I used to tell this to my employees all the time, like, stop judging yourself through the lens of a moment and start judging yourself through the lens of 10 years. If you think of yourself in 10-year increments, like, you will blow your mind. So if you're embarrassed today about where you are, don't compare yourself even to yesterday, which may not soothe that and encourage you to push forward. Think back 10 years. My gut instinct is, unless you've really been treading water, in which case then leverage that pain to never do that again. Yeah. But if you think back to where you were 10 years, chances are like you're gonna be blown away with how far you come. And so then it's like, all right, then I'm just gonna focus my gaze 10 years in the future and start saying, what would I have to do to be somewhere where I'd be blown away then with where I'm at now? Yeah. But it really does require you to say, okay, I'm the pride that I'm going to establish is actually around my willingness to look at the fact that I'm not good right now today. You have to fight to reach your dream. You have to sacrifice and work hard for it. That's coming from the man who has come to define natural talent. But that's what other people put on him. People want to see somebody who's just naturally talented. It's God-given. They were graced. They were blessed with something at birth. But what does he say when he's asked about what it took to become the person that he is? It took hard work. It took sacrifice. It took giving things up. It took doubling down. It took pushing himself every day, day after day. And that's the thing about hard work. When you put that kind of unending, blinding effort into something, it gets to the point where you've worked so hard that it looks like magic, that people would sooner believe that it's DNA, that it's gifted, that it is God-given, than to believe that they would have to work that hard to replicate it. But if you can stop making other people extraordinary as a way to let yourself off the hook, then you too can become extraordinary. All of us are capable of far more than we think. We're capable of more than the people who love us the most think. We are capable of more than the people who hate us the most would have us believe. At the end of the day, it is a very simple question you're going to have to ask yourself and answer for yourself. How hard are you willing to work? How much are you willing to sacrifice? But on the other side of that is power and energy. And as Kyle Rote Jr. said, if you're attacking, you don't get as tired as when you're chasing. And that's the key. When you know what you want, and when you will not be held back from getting it, suddenly you go on the offensive. It's not about pleasing somebody else. It's not about chasing somebody else, becoming them, or even beating them. It is about yourself knowing what you want and attacking it, going after it, and not letting anybody dissuade you. It is looking at yourself and recognizing how you have to improve to get that good, but you've got to hunger for that goal. You've got to hunger to get across and win. You've got to want that the way that a man whose head is on fire wants a pond.
And when you get to that stage, when you're able to cultivate something in yourself like that, something that is refusing to be extinguished, something that will be heard, something that will stand up and be counted, then you're going to have what you need to get the skills that you need to move forward, to win, to attack. And in that attack, and having the energy to move forward relentlessly, you will find that even though you're working harder than you've ever worked in your life, you're more energized than you've ever been in your life. The times where you fatigue, they're not the times you're working the hardest. The times you fatigue are when you're being least yourself. You're not being true to who you are and what you want. So right now, start being honest about what it is you're willing to attack. Start being honest about who you want to be, what you're willing to become, and the price you're willing to pay to get there. If you give yourself over to that, you will not be able to be stopped.
If you want to do something extraordinary, you have one job: leave your fellow humans in awe. Now, when you think about, holy shit, my job as a parent, as an entrepreneur, as an athlete, as a speaker, as a whatever you want to be, you've got to get so good at that thing that when people see you do it, you make them experience the most potent human emotion, and that is awe. To get that good is a terrifying journey of self-discovery and confronting who you really are, because you cannot make change until you acknowledge where you're actually at. Now, why? Because that's not some new age woo thing. It is for real. Like, if you understand where you're weak, then you know where to spend your time building skills. To me, the gap between where you are now and where you want to go is a gap of skill set. And once I realized that, and I made the choice to believe that this whole brain plasticity thing was real, even though it was being hotly debated, then I could shift my self-esteem from being smart, right, good, worthy, to being that of the learner. The learner is the only identity that I have ever found that is anti-fragile. As Nassim Taleb says, things that are robust, that are strong, that are tough, that can take just a lot of abuse before they break, they are still ultimately defined by their breaking point. Something that is anti-fragile, on the other hand, is something that the more you attack it, the more it is pounded on, the stronger it gets. Now imagine being able to build a belief system, the thing that you build your self-esteem around, if all of that were tied to something that is truly anti-fragile, that the more somebody comes after it, the more robust it becomes. Being a learner is that answer.
We went through a whole debate about what is the next company going to be. And it was one of those where it had to be something that we cared about. You know, we had started this whole gyration of selling the technology company because I was so pissed and so tired of chasing money. And I wanted to do something that I believed in. I wanted to do something that mattered, that had impact. So the only reason that I was interested in getting into nutrition was because I felt that it could save the two people that I was most worried about in the world. And two, I thought that it could address what I saw as the greatest health crisis we face as a species, quite frankly.
There's a difference between happiness and fulfillment. A bowl of ice cream brings me happiness. It does not bring me fulfillment. Fulfillment is often born of suffering. Fulfillment is about doing the things that are hard. In fact, the Greeks have a word for it. It's called techne. Techne means that you acquire a set of skills that is unique to you. The acquisition of those skills was very difficult. And here's the important part. Those skills serve other people. To me, I believe that the very reason that we're all here is to see how many skills we can acquire that have utility and then put that utility to the test in service of others. That's going to be the thing that lights you on fire. That you're busting your ass. You're really getting good at something. You are taking action. You're moving forward. You're doing the things you need to learn and trigger that adaptation response that humans have. You're putting yourself under the stress. You've identified a goal. You're working your way backwards. to where you are today. And that's the key.
Now, building yourself begins with intention, clarity. You have to know who you want to become. You can't just show up in the gym of the mind and do random stuff any more than you can show up in the gym of the body and do random stuff and think that you're going to end up on the stage competing for Mr. Olympia. It doesn't work like that. You've got to have this clarity of focus. And the way that I always explain it to people come to me all the time and they're like, Tom, I want to help people, man. And I'm like, that is rad. That's coming from such a beautiful place. But telling me that you want to help somebody is like saying you want to win a gold medal. In what? The Olympics? Yes, fantastic. Summer or winter? Summer, great. Tennis or swimming? Swimming? Which event? Backstroke? The medley? Because until you know exactly in what way you are trying to serve people, you don't know what skills you need to acquire in order to leave people in awe so that you may become extraordinary. Skills have utility. Learning how to swim better makes you a faster swimmer. Building certain muscles in your arms and in your shoulders, all of the different things that go into getting great at any sport, all of those things must be learned with calculation. They must be practiced and rehearsed over and over and over. You have to push yourself long past the point of boredom. Boredom kills more people in the pursuit of success than any hater will ever kill. Boredom is the great killer of dreams. Boredom. Because people don't have the focus, they don't have the clarity of what they're trying to achieve. They have not built into their life an intoxication for what they're trying to accomplish.
First of all, each and every one of you needs to avoid what Kevin Kelly calls premature optimization. Then you need to go out and experience a whole lot of stuff. Now, premature optimization is where somebody thinks off the jump, oh, this thing, I'm kind of interested in that. I'm going to optimize my life for that thing. The reason this happens is, God forbid, you went to a high school where they already made you choose like more or less a major, which they do in the UK, and I think is problematic. And some schools do here in the US. Then certainly by the time you get to college, everyone is forcing you, they want you to pick a major. Then when you get out, you've got to get a job, and you want to get a job that makes sense with the major that you just got because you took on all this debt and you spent all this time. And so that's premature optimization. You literally made a decision when you were 18, maybe 17, terrifying. And now the whole rest of your life is an echo of that random decision you made before your brain was finished developing. Think about that for a second. Your brain doesn't stop developing until you're 25. So at 18, and that's late. Honestly, most people are thinking about it at 17 or even 16. You're making a decision, you're prematurely optimizing, you haven't experienced enough stuff, you don't know what really lights that initial spark of interest, and so you go down this path, you're at 25, you're having a quarter life crisis because you don't love what you do, it's a f***ing mess. So, my advice is to go experience a whole lot of things. Now, whether that's taking a gap year, which I would never have done, so trust me when I say that's not your only option, but you need to be experiencing a lot of stuff, trying a lot of things, taking a lot of classes, watching videos, tutorials, reading, learning, like figuring out what it is that you go, whoa, I really like that thing. It's not a passion, it's not gonna spark off like that. It's just experience, you find something, it piques your curiosity. You're more interested in that than the next thing. Okay, now we're going to engage with it. This is step 2. Engagement is different than just going and experiencing. So that's sort of a very non-committal, dilettante sort of way of involving yourself with something, just experiencing it. The next is I really like this and I'm gonna go hard on it. So if I took a dance class, now I'm gonna sign up for a year's worth of dance classes or something. I'm gonna start going and I'm really gonna see if I like this. And in that engagement process where you're starting to read about it, you're talking to other people about it, you're going to find out if the more you get into it, the more you're like, whoa, this went from an interest to like a real fascination. Fascination is that next gate. If it turns into a fascination and you're like, whoa, the more I learn about this, the more I want to learn, and the more that I get just excited about this, the more energy it gives me. Okay, that's a good chance then that thing can become a passion. Now we're going to go through the process of actually gaining mastery. Now, I think passion is like love, meaning it needs to be a reciprocal thing. So as you go down the process of gaining mastery, those skills need to then be useful in the real world, and the echo that you get back from the real world that those skills are valuable to other people, the more you're going to be like, whoa, I feel good about myself. So now you had something that was interesting. It turned into a fascination the more you engaged with it. And now as you gain skills, you're actually able to serve other people who then give you that positive reinforcement where you're like, whoa, not only am I getting good at this, like that getting good has real world utility and it impacts other people. And then they echo that back and that makes me feel really good about myself. So I enjoy it in and of itself, and I enjoy that element of techne where as a social species, I am helping other parts of my tribe, and that feels really good. And it's something that other people value. That is the passion. Now, fanning the flames is a slightly different thing to the side of that, which is in that process, which I think it starts pretty early, probably starts back at the interest phase. As you get interested in something, you're going to start doing things like what I'm doing right now. 2 seconds before the camera started rolling, I was not talking like this. I did not have this energy level. I wasn't using my hands as much or my face as much, oddly enough. But embodying something is absolutely critical. So a big part of gaining a passion is telling other people what you're up to, allowing yourself to embody the excitement, telling yourself and other people that you're excited about it, and actually embodying that excitement, embodying that passion, which then your brain goes, whoa, we're getting really excited about this. You know, our volume is getting higher, we're getting more energetic, we're moving more. All of that stuff forces the brain to say, this must actually be really important. And when you start doing that, then you're beginning to hardwire your brain for that. And you're beginning to associate the emotion with that thing that you're doing. It is something that you can very much do as long as it's based on something real. I find that this is pretty ineffective if there isn't that real core level of interest. But if you have that real core level of interest, then all of a sudden everything that you do just magnifies that over and over and over. I don't go, oh, that's interesting, bright line. I go, okay, that's interesting. I want to explore that more. What would that look like? How would that serve me? What would it really feel like for me? How's it playing out in my life? Does it actually have real world implications? And this isn't all something that I sit down in one quick session. Like that's what I'm thinking about. I may think about it for weeks, a month, more, 6 months, who knows? And it depends on what kind of impact that it's going to have in my life. So you don't lead with bright lines to create a habit. Let's be really clear about that. So habits are something different. Getting in routines and habits is a place to start. And then if you find, like I have a morning routine, I have habits that I do every morning, but they are things that I'm very flexible on that creates a lot of mobility in my life. If I wake up late or something like that, then I'll just shave this out or the other. Bright lines, like if I have a bright line, I don't with my bright lines. I do my bright lines. So that's the whole point of a bright line. They are absolutely non-negotiable. So be very careful about what you put bright lines around. Make sure it is something that's leading you towards your goal. And I think better to make it a habit and a routine first and see if it actually has an advantage, if it's something that's important and if it's something that you struggle with and think that it's really, really important and you need that bright line.
Elon Musk talks about in his business, it's all about breaking things down to the physics. If you sell to people, the physics in your world is psychology and understanding what motivates them. So your company needs to have a why. If you know Simon Sinek and his brilliant book, Start With Why, you'll know what we're talking about, the golden circle. Most people know what they do. They may even know how they do it, but they oftentimes don't know why they do it. Why did we launch Quest Nutrition? Because we wanted to end metabolic disease. Now, nobody knew that from looking at a protein bar, but our marketing material was about that. We didn't do features and benefits. We said, stop sacrificing. We said, you should hold food companies to a new standard. It's ridiculous that food companies aren't engineering new equipment to make food that's both good for you and delicious. It's just ridiculous. Nobody's held their feet to the fire. People have been buying the same junk products for years. They're not going to change unless you force them to. And so we came along and said, we're going to be the bearer of standards. We know why we're doing what we're doing. So I can't release a product that has sugar in it. Why? Because that's not going to end metabolic disease, and that is my driver. I show up to work every day not thinking about making it rain and counting my money. I'm not swimming in it like Scrooge McDuck. I'm coming every day thinking about two people, my mom and my sister. And I ask a very simple question. Is this advantageous for my mom and my sister? Yes or no? If it is, I do it. If it's not, I don't. Now, a lot of times, what's advantageous for my mom and my sister was really expensive. It was super annoying to have to do it because it was like you watch your profit margins like, oh God. But it becomes an easy filter, and every business has to have a filter. Every business needs to know what they say yes to and what they say no to. And if you don't have that blinding guiding light, when you scale, you will fall apart. And the reason you will fall apart, your customers won't know who you are. They won't know how to communicate your message to somebody else. Your employees won't know who you are. They won't know what to communicate to each other, let alone the outside world. So it has got to be blinding. You have to be able to write it down. It has to be super clear. It's got to be direct, and it's got to be meaningful. And it has to be real. It's got to actually be something that drives you.
So we all come to a relationship with like expectations about how we think people should act. And unfortunately, we don't recognize our expectations as expectations. We recognize them as truth. This is how the world is. It is how the world should be. And when we think that they have those same beliefs and values and rules and all that. And so given this scenario, there's only one way to act. That is certainly obvious. And so when the person doesn't act like that, we take it personally, like, whoa, do you not respect me? Do you not love me? Do you not care about me? And it just isn't that. They have a different set of beliefs and rules. There's enough nuance difference that they're not, if they're intending to hurt you, you have a whole different set of problems. But assuming that they're not intending to hurt you, then you have a communication problem. So Lisa and I actually define our terms. So we have a few words in our marriage that they mean something. So if I say, hey baby, it's important to me that you leave that, glass of water on the table, then she just wouldn't move it, period. Simple as. Like the word important like comes in all caps with exclamation points glowing red. Like that's like when we say it, like it's a drop whatever you're doing, like it's important that you do X, Y, or Z. Now the big thing is when you define a word like that, you can't ever abuse it. So like, I would never say it's important to me that you leave it. It's gotta be just extraordinary. Like how many times do I tell her something's important in a year? I don't know, 6, 7 times in a year. Wow. So it's like, it's really gotta be limited. And then another one is promise. If I say, I promise I'm gonna do that, dude, I'm going to do that. Like there's no two ways about it. So you never throw around promise ever under any circumstance. And so, dude, it's like you really, really have to be hardcore. And the other way that we use promise is if she says, how does this dress look on me? I'm like, yeah, it looks great. And she's like, you promise? Then it's like, all right, it makes you look fat. What can I say? You know what I mean? It's like, but then you cut to like the chase on something. Now, the thing is, you can't say that all the time. You can't be like, how's this dress make me look? Fine, promise. What do you think of this dinner? You like it? Yeah, I love it. Promise. Like if you're doing that, it loses everything. Totally. But if you're saving it for like, in fact, God, I almost don't remember the last time I asked Lisa to promise something like that. But you know that you haven't. We certainly use it more in the early days of our marriage. But even then, like how many times a year? 3 or 4? I mean, it's like, but it really forces you to respect these things that you make sacred in your relationship.
The number one question I get, and I get this question so much you can't imagine, how do I find my passion? The good news is, passion is not something that's handed to you. It is not a lightning bolt moment. It's another nice, simple mathematical equation. First of all, you need to identify your areas of interest. Everybody's interested in something. And I find the big problem is people stop themselves because they say, yeah, well, the thing that I'm interested in couldn't possibly be a business. So let's take video games back in the 80s. Back when everybody thought that video games were a joke, you're ruining your brain, it's like intellectual candy, kids get off the computer, go play outside, Nintendo's a joke, it's ridiculous. And then we have an entire industry now that's born up around video games that has made untold numbers of millionaires. I met one of the founders of Riot Games that created League of Legends. The guy's like, I don't know, 31, maybe younger. I mean, just crazy. They do $1 billion in revenue from microtransactions of things that are not essential to play the game. The game is totally free to play. You don't need to pay for anything. Imagine that for a second. You're in an industry where they don't need to buy anything to get full use of your game, and yet you do over $1 billion in revenue because they said, I love this. I like being around games. I like the competition of it. I think it's amazing. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to be inventive. I'm going to look for areas to add value.
And so they have. And more people now watch esports, the finale of League of Legends, than watch the finales, I think, of all major sports combined. It's crazy. They fill arenas. It's absolutely bonkers. But that was somebody who said, this is something I love. It's something I want to be around. It is an area of interest. And I don't care if other people tell me that it can't be a business. It's what I want to be around. With enough ingenuity and enough forethought into what actually can be a business, because some things can't, you can really do something with something that's an interest. All right, so an interest, you need to gain mastery in it. During the process of gaining mastery, you'll find out whether you actually like that thing enough to become great at it. It is my belief, whatever it is you set out to do as a business, there should be one litmus test. You should be able to ask and affirmatively answer the following question. Do I want to know more about this than anyone else in the world? Don't get into something unless you plan to be the best. That's my piece of advice. I know that's not going to sit well with everybody. But if you want to have the passion to make something big, to make big change, it's got to be something that you believe in beyond reasonable doubt. It's got to be something you've just got to make happen. So ask yourself, do I want to know more about this than anyone else? Because you're going to have to get better at it than anyone else if you want to be excellent and deliver on the promise.
There are very concrete habits that you can use, that I have used. Once you get your mind in the right place, once you believe that it can happen, this is what I did. I worked out. Why? Because it helped me gain control of my mind. One, it was micro credibility with myself every day. I said I was going to do something, I did it. Two, when you're suffering and you're willing to fight through it, you tell yourself a story that you're willing to pay the price to become what you want to become. And also, and this may be the most important reason each and every one of you should start working out, and it has nothing to do with living longer, because we could get hit by a meteorite, who knows? So I'm not even worried about that, but I am worried about this. When you watch your body transform, you get the loudest signal from your subconscious that you can change, that you can change anything you want, that you can change your bicep, your tricep, your quad, whatever it is that you want. Something that you literally could not do the day before, you can do today. And your mind sees that that's true. Your mind sees that something you couldn't pick up yesterday, you can pick up today. And it begins to ask itself, well, if that's possible, then what else is possible? Now, for me, finding my center was also a very important thing. So I work out first. The next thing I do without fail is meditate. I do a just breathe meditation where I'm simply trying to calm my mind. Then I do what I call thinkitating. During meditating, I get into an alpha wave state brain pattern, which enhances creativity and unique connections. I'm not worried about whether I'll ever think a unique thought. I am simply interested in the unique connections that I will make that no one else before me or after me will ever make, because their circumstances are different than mine. And that, to me, is what makes each of us a beautiful snowflake, is we're all going to make connections that other people might not make. And so during thinkitating, I take advantage of a problem I'm trying to solve. I smash it together with my alpha wave state, and I see what comes out of it. I read obsessively, because I believe in one simple math equation: ideas in equal ideas out. And then I keep a list of the most important things I'm trying to accomplish. If you're trying to become something, you need to know what that something is.
I am not a born entrepreneur. Now, there are many people that consider themselves a born entrepreneur. I am not one of them. I know that there were kids out there that had lemonade stands when they were like 6 months old. They couldn't hold their head up, but they could sell. That was not me. I was totally retarded when it came to stuff like that. I had a paper route. And they gave your money in two ways. One, they just gave you sort of a blanket weekly payment for delivering the paper, but then the other part of it was you were supposed to go collect that money. And I was too afraid to knock on the doors to collect the money, so I never got that part, but I felt so obligated that I said I would do it that I kept delivering the papers essentially for free. So that's where I started as an entrepreneur. My parents' biggest frustration was that I was epically lazy, and if they handed out gold medals for being lazy, I would have won, I assure you, hands down. There was a period in my life where I would spend between 2 and 3 hours in bed because it was warm in bed and it was cold out of bed. All right? That's true. I actually did an interview with Jocko Willink, if you guys know him, Extreme Ownership. His book totally blew me away, and in the middle of the interview, I confessed that, and he said, "Tom, don't worry, we'll let you edit that out." And I said, "Jocko, I actually don't want to edit that out, because right now the narrative about what it means to be an entrepreneur
is to be naturally gifted. And I call total on that because I'm not naturally gifted. I don't have any natural talents. And all of us are born as this lump of jelly that can't hold its own head up, that poos in its pants, and we all learn to do things. And it's that ability to specialize that makes us great. And the things that you choose to put your time and energy into, those are going to be the things that allow you to accomplish something. But all of that is a choice.
I heard a quote one time, and it so terrifies me. This, in fact, over a long enough time period, people are going to hear this quote from me so many times because seriously, man, I'm not joking. This scares me.
Wow.
And it scares me enough that it has a daily place in my life. And that is, genius is a young man's game. And when I heard that quote, I thought, whoa, the one thing that all of us touch for the briefest of moments is youth. And if you're lucky, what you'll get is a whole lot of middle age and then some old age, but you don't get a lot of youth. And so I just thought, ooh, that's really scary. And they were basing it on the number of people that win Nobel Prizes. It's almost always for work they did in their 20s and 30s, almost always. And I thought, oh, I don't like that. And so looking at why that, and the reason, I guess this is important to say, the reason that I didn't like it was I felt that my youth was really whipping by and I hadn't accomplished the things that I wanted to accomplish. So if I'm, my youth is whooshing by me, how do I make sure that I can access genius at any time? And I'll genius shorthand for like playing at the absolute best of your game and really changing things, like really having an impact. And this is one thing I think you and I share, like I want to have impact on the world. So if I just wanted to be rich, Lisa and I would have bought an island and retired, years ago. So clearly there's something more that's motivating me, and that thing is impact and really touching lives. So it's like wanting to be able to do that. I don't want to say, well, I had this brief window in my youth and I either did or didn't make use of it. But even if I did, I don't want the rest of my life to be looking back on that. So another quote that drives me, your future should always be bigger than your past. So, all right, you've got genius is a young man's game and a personal belief of mine that you should always be looking towards doing something more than you've ever done. And so you put those two together, and I just knew I had to solve for that problem. And the only solution that I have for it is switching things up, like you said, to live at the edges. And the same book was talking about the people that do end up getting either multiple Nobel Prizes or prizes for work they did later, is it's people that would routinely change so that they would have these two overlapping areas. So like chemistry and physics, and like where those two meet, like there's new discoveries and new ways to challenge your own thinking. And so always staying fresh, always challenging my own thinking, always looking at how am I wrong? Most people go into an endeavor with the confirmation bias. In fact, you just brought that up. So it's like, I'm so aware that by nature, like everybody, I just want to be told how right I am, how amazing the way that I'm thinking is. And because it feels good, right? That feels awesome.
Now you've had, like I have, you've had extraordinary people sitting across from you. I've been blessed to have you sit across from me today. And I'm curious if there was a common denominator between all of these people, or what have you learned that surprised you in doing the show so far?
The thing that's really surprised me is that it is so consistent.
Which is? What is?
What has made them all successful and their ability to articulate it. They use different words. Some people come at it from different angles. Everybody has something fresh.
At any moment, this is so important, at any moment, you can choose to believe something new about yourself. Now, the weird thing about belief is as soon as you change that belief, it becomes true. Why that is, I will never quite understand. What weird quirk of human evolution has left us in a space where simply believing it makes it true? If you think you're dumb, guess what? You're dumb. Truly. And you will act in accordance with that belief, and that should scare the shit out of you, because it scared the life out of me. And I saw myself heading down a path that I did not want to be on because I believed that I was dumb. I had a fixed mindset. I used to only apply for jobs where I knew I'd be smarter than the person interviewing me because I did not want to feel badly about myself. But you can imagine the types of jobs that I got. I once lovingly referred to myself as the king of remedial jobs. And I actually had pride in that, because what I built my sense of pride around was getting the job, was always being smart, was being right, and none of those things were moving me towards my goals. Now, if you don't know this quote, live by it. One can have no smaller or greater mastery than mastery over oneself. That's Da Vinci. Da Vinci did amazing things with his life. I wanted to do equally amazing things with mine. And if that's the game that we're playing, if I can construct my belief system, if I can choose at any moment to believe something that's more empowering, than I was believing the moment before. And that will actually find its way into my actions, allow me to do things that I couldn't do the moment before. Then it's like that moment in The Matrix where Neo realizes he knows Kung Fu. And that's like, as funny as that is, that's how I think about life. To me, the very fundamental purpose of life is to find out how many skills I can acquire that have utility, and then put that utility to the test in service of something greater than myself.
And I used to say to myself all the time, you're going to get rich or you're going to die trying. And so, starting as a copywriter, I started busting my ass. Step number 1, I convinced my wife, we're going to, because there were 2 other partners that hired me, I'm going to pick an apartment that's no more than 5 minutes from either of them. That way, if they call me at 2 in the morning, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And they're going to know no one else in their company is as serious as me. And I'm going to claw my way up this company, and I'm going to get whatever job I become the right person for, and I'm going to work my way up. And by the time we ended up selling that company, I had clawed my way through sweat equity into owning 10% of the company and being the chief marketing officer, from starting as the copywriter. The person that everybody asked, who's the kid in the server room, was the only person that didn't have a window. They literally put me in the room with all the computer servers. But starting from there, I knew I could wow people because I was willing to grind it out. And that is one of the most valuable things that anybody can do.
Only execution matters. Burn that into your nervous system. Get a tattoo. Do whatever you need to do to remind yourself, only execution matters. Thinking about it, feeling good about it, those are awesome. But if you have a vision of something you're trying to do, become, whatever, and you don't execute against it, and I don't need you to want to build a big business. If you tell me you want to be the greatest parent of all time, then I'm going to ask you, what are you doing to execute on that goal? What are you doing? How do you define it? What are your deliverables? What are the metrics by which you're judging yourself? And by the way, if you don't want a grand goal, you don't need one. But then say, what I'm trying to do is get centered. I'm trying to experience happiness. Even that, you can begin to look at ways that you can improve that. Now, I very much subscribe to the theory that the human animal is an active species, meaning it will forever be moving forward. I think that's a good thing. It's one of the most exciting things in my life. And I have 3 fears. 1, brain damage. That freaks me out. 2, losing my wife because, damn, that woman's cool. And then 3, I don't ever want to feel like I've hit the end of what I can do. I always want to feel like there's something more that I can learn and grow into. So keeping in mind, execution is how you get there no matter what your path is.
And in the beginning, when all we could do, because we didn't know production, we just had to throw human capital at it. And I needed people there, not kidding, at 2 a.m. on a Friday night. I had a bunch of ex-convicts in their early 20s with the tattoos on the face, the teardrop and all that, grinding it out to make protein bars because I gave them hope. Because I showed them that it doesn't matter who they are today, it only matters who they're trying to become and the price that they're willing to pay to get there. And so when you guys walk out of here, that's what you've got to ask. This whole theme of pivoting, this whole theme of keeping your center is about knowing what you want and believing you can make it a reality. But the only way to make it a reality is to put in the work. You've got to put in the work. The change is hard. The change is difficult. The change will demand everything of you. But man, if inside you really believe in what you're doing, you really see how you can get to that goal that you want, if you really see how you can serve other people doing what you do with this skill set that you've worked your ass off to acquire, then you can actually make change in people's lives. And that's what motivates me. Getting the skills has real-world implications. It took me from scrounging in my couch cushions to find enough change to put gas in my car to building a billion-dollar business. It is absolutely limitless what you can accomplish.
Now think about that. If that's really true, if what I just said is true, that human potential is limitless, then how you spend your time becomes a spiritual consideration. So when you guys part from here, one, stay in touch with each other, because you're going to need that. Because if you're going to start pushing the limits, if you're going to show how much somebody in your position can influence other people's lives, if you're going to show people the power of what you do, if you're going to show people the depths to which you can touch another human's life, if you've seen the look on somebody's face who has been transformed by what you've done by them, to see them transform their vision of themselves and to watch them before your eyes go from believing that they can't do something to realizing that they can, that they have untapped stores of potential.
Now, I don't think that we're born blank slates, but we are so close to that. To worry about where your limits are is to miss how much you can improve. So focus on how much you can improve. There's an amazing quote by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the author of the Gulag Archipelago. And what he said was, the line between good and evil runs through every human heart. To me, it's not about good and evil. To me, it's about malleability. That's a statement of how shapeable we are. Now, here's the terrifying thing about how we get shaped. It happens when you're young. You get all these things that come to you that seem to be simply true. I believed that the human mind couldn't change. I believed that it was fixed. I believed that my talent and intelligence were just what they were. It all seemed true. It wasn't like I knew it to be a lie. It wasn't even like I knew that I had a choice to think of it a different way. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is from Albert Einstein. And he said, the most important decision any human being has to make is whether they live in a friendly or a hostile universe. Decision. The most important decision anyone has to make. Because neither of those two states is empirically true, but either will immediately appear true once you decide to believe it. So once you decide to believe, the world is working for me, this shit is happening for me, it's not happening to me, I know this room has heard that statement. Once you believe that, you start looking for the ways in which that was powerful. How is the worst thing that ever happened to me actually secretly the best thing that's ever happened to me? And so suddenly I started saying, how is this shame of sitting in bed, how is this the best thing that's ever happened to me? How is this soliary type awareness of just how dumb I really am, how is that powerful? And the thing that winds me up, when I say that, when I talk about I started from not being that bright, nobody thought I was going to win, my own mother thought I was going to fail, my father-in-law did not want me to marry his daughter, they think that I'm just being humble or that even I misidentified myself. But the reality is that's how shapeable a human being is. And I had made decisions, I had chosen to believe things, I had chosen to value myself for things, I had built my self-esteem around things that were not moving me forward. And so I began to change my belief system. I began to change the things that I value. And think about values. Think about how much they shape your life. Depending on where you grow up, you could become one of the members of the tribe on North Sentinel Island who killed that missionary who rolled up on their beaches. They just started hitting that fool with spears and arrows and just fucking killed him. You could be that. You could be a warrior of Sparta. You could be a Nazi guard. Depending on the time and the place you grow up in, you could be a Manhattan socialite. You could be a party girl. You could be one of any countless identities that we see in the world. Not because you were born to be that thing. If we were born to be something, then we would still see some percentage of Spartan warriors being born today. We would see North Sentinelese born in Omaha, Nebraska. But we don't, because each of these places carries with it a value system, a belief system, things that are unique to that group that you grow up in, what your parents tell you about your family, about you, what it means to be you, what you learn in schools, what you see in the media, all of that stuff is shaping how you view yourself and how you view the world. But it's happening insidiously because it is so invisible. People don't realize that they are choices. Now, once you reframe all of this, these are things that I'm choosing to believe. And once you realize you can choose to believe something new and thusly get a different result, everything changes.
What is that mindset of constantly working on yourself without judging yourself to a deeper level, without doing it in a way that always pulling you down, but always pushing you up? And you're doing that in your relationship. Whenever I watch relationship theory, I think the conversations you and Lisa have, incredible. So it seems like you're doing it in all areas of your life. Which area did it start in? Which areas did it evolve to? Let's just break that whole.
Yeah, so let's answer that question. Yeah. So where did it start and where did it go? So the honest answer is that, like many of the most amazing things in my life, they were born of misery. And I was deeply and profoundly unhappy, dissatisfied with who I was, what I was capable of, where I was in life, all of it. I was just really unhappy about it. Now, the one good thing is I've always met things like that with, and what can I do? And I have a bias towards action. And then I've cultivated that bias towards action, which is how it's gotten extreme and is permeated into every area of my life. Okay, so it starts with it's this dark place. This, like I said, I failed in film school. I didn't fail in film school. I graduated second in my class, but there was a failure that was so emotionally catastrophic that everybody else would have been like, oh, you got a B, like what's the problem? Sure, I got a B in the class, but I didn't walk away with a thesis film that I could use to get a job as a filmmaker. So for me, it was like, whoa, I just lost massively. So I'm, in this very dark place. I'm broke as the day is long. I can't afford furniture. I literally sit on the floor in my unfurnished apartment like that. Just it's a normal phase that people go through, but then put on top of that I'm feeling down and stuck, like I don't know where I'm gonna go. Propensity towards action kicks in. I start reading. I'm learning about the brain, figuring out how much of this can I change. I realize I can change it. And then that change felt so good. And even, let's do a thought exercise. This is for people listening because you're already there. But for anybody listening, and you're listening to Jay because you want to get there, you see something, which by the way, you feel when you're with him, it is real. And I love that about you. But like this sense of peace, like the normal slings and arrows of life, he's found a way to deal with. I won't say that he doesn't have them, but he's found a way to deal with it. And that's what you're looking for. So going into that, it's like, if you are in a dark place and you hear change is real, change is possible, doesn't that lift your mood? Don't you want that to be true? And once you allow it, because you have to allow it. Once you allow that to lift your mood and you're like, I feel better just by thinking I can change. That was huge for me. That was like moment one was when I realized I actually can change. So this thing that feels like a death threat, this like smothering cloud of just like despair, it can clear away. And it immediately, and it's not like, oh, it went from gray skies to blue skies. It wasn't that immediate, but it was literally immediately a lighter load just because I realized I can change. So I was like, whoa, I can change. None of this is a death sentence. That's so like just amazing. That was enough to get me going. And people are always looking for, how do I have that energy? I'm depressed. I'm down on myself. How do I get the energy to push through? Man, you've got to find a way to find energy in that. You can change. So whatever position you're in right now, you can change no matter what it is, no matter how horrific, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you've done. Like there is a way out from under it. But part of it is allowing that sense of lightness to be there. So I allowed it.
The important thing here to note is that everyone needs an ego. Everyone needs self-esteem. Everyone needs to feel good about themselves. And the crazy thing, when you really stop and think about suicide, and this is a new obsession of mine, if you stop and think about suicide, what has happened? That person believes, falsely, but they believe that they'll never be happy again, that they'll never feel good about themselves again. And that's why it's referred to as a permanent solution to a temporary problem, because that will pass. But in that moment, it feels like it couldn't ever go away. So we need to find things that make us feel good about who we are. Because when you lose a sense of feeling good about who you are, life truly feels hopeless. So that's critical. And people often talk about, to stay away from an ego, to not pride yourself on things. But I'm telling you, that person prides themselves on not having an ego. And so it becomes what you pride yourself on is absolutely incredible. Now, don't make the mistake that I made. I used to want to be smart. When I talked about being the king of remedial jobs, it was because I wanted to put myself in situations where I was the smartest person in the room. And in doing that, I was always going into smaller and smaller rooms. But it felt so good to be right. And the problem was I was wrong a lot of the times. Now, when this one finally came to a head, my business partners, who were far smarter than I am in terms of IQ, processing data, which I define IQ as your ability to process data rapidly. They could process data very rapidly. And we would get into arguments and I would always lose. And it was very frustrating. And I remember one day, finally, I actually convinced them to do something my way. And I realized, oh, I just won the argument, but I know I'm wrong. And so now what? I've gotten what I thought I wanted. I finally won this victory. If I don't feel smart myself, at least I'm getting reflected back to me that I've solved the problem. And now I feel totally stuck. Because if I really want to move towards my goal of getting rich, it does not help to do things that I know are against the company just to be right. And in that moment, I realized what I had to do was switch my self-esteem from being right to pursuing the right answer faster than anyone else. And then putting energy behind that and being like, oh my gosh, Timmy came up with the idea, or it was Sally, and Sally, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And giving them so much energy to try to see it through because that's the right idea. And then I began to develop my reputation of being the guy that even if 3 seconds before that I had been fighting for another idea, once I realized I was wrong, I would admit it. And it's amazing what reputation you can build around that. And it is way more effective for business.
How do you think about failure then?
Not trying. For me, like to not have the audacious goal, to not really give it a real shot. And I know I'm constantly gut checking myself for, am I playing at building the next Disney or am I actually building the next Disney? That means something to me. So if I get to the end of this and the world is clapping for me and they're like, oh my God, you're so amazing and look how far you went. But I know that I was only playing at trying to get there and that I kept dialing it back because I was getting too scared. That will be failure for me.
The first thing you need to do, whenever somebody wants something, they know what they want. They've got a clear goal. They're prepared to do the work, but they just find there's pretty radical inconsistencies as they're trying to move along that path to really get something going. Number one is that you need to really get amped up about why that goal matters to you. Because once you know why the goal matters, that's going to be that thing that gives you meaning and purpose, that turns into a passion, that allows you to show up and keep doing it when you're bored. Because boredom kills more dreams than failure. I just promise you. You just get to the point where it's such a grind and you've got to do it day after day, month after month, year after year. It's just like it really drags on. It's like that old Outkast song, forever, forever, ever, forever, ever. It's like it's easy to do something once. Maybe you can do it for a week, but when you have to just keep at the grind, then you really have to have a strong why. So figuring out why is it that you care enough about this? Because by the way, if you don't care enough about it to do all this, go find something that you do care enough about to go after. Because you can do anything you want in life, just not everything. Now, if you're as angered by that notion as I am, you realize whatever it is you're going to give yourself over to and do all the way, it needs to be something that you are really on fire about. Now, getting on fire about something, you're not born with that. You cultivate that fire. So you're going to pick something, starts as an interest. You're going to pick it, engage with it, fan the flames of that fire by talking about it to yourself, to your friends, to your family, to anybody who will listen about why it matters to you. And then you go hard on that. So like for me, I'm trying to build the next Disney. But why? Why am I trying to build the next Disney? Because I've worked with so many people in the inner cities that were extraordinary, far smarter than I am. And they're doing nothing with their life. Why? Because they don't have the right frame of reference. Their mindset is so limited that even though they have all of this natural skill that they could build upon and turn into something absolutely extraordinary, they're not doing it because they're not thinking about themselves and the world in the right way. Okay, I'm not prepared to live in that world. Right now in America, the number one predictor of your future success is your zip code. Okay, I want to introduce you to a word, maybe you know it, maybe you don't, called an animus. Something that pisses you off enough that it animates you to take action. Now you want to find something, a spark of something, and really turn that into this raging inferno of I am not prepared to live in a world where that's true. And now I'm going to show up every day and I'm going to fight. Make sure you focus it, get it specific to a person. Don't let it be abstract. Who's someone you know and love that's struggling with that thing that you want to put an end to? Do you have a mom that's struggling with depression, a brother that has massive anxiety, whatever the case may be?
There's something out there that animates you, that you want to fix, and you attach that to a person that you love and care for. Why? So that on a Friday at 2 a.m., when you're exhausted and you're bored and you know you need to show up and have the discipline to see this through, you don't want to be thinking in the abstract. You want to be thinking very concretely about a person who is struggling with that thing, and then you can fight for them. I always said at Quest, I was trying to end metabolic disease because my mom and my sister were morbidly obese, and I didn't want them to die. So at Friday on at 2 a.m., I wasn't showing up thinking about protein bars. I showed up thinking about them. And suddenly when you're fighting for somebody like that and it's personal, you'll have the energy that you need to see it through.
What does the meditation process specifically look like?
Dead simple. So I use what I call Just Breathe. So it was born of Mark Divine's box breathing. At least he was the one that introduced it to me. So he preaches, do it 4 equal parts. So you've got the inhale is the exact same length as the inhale hold, exact same length as the exhale, exact same length as the exhale hold. Now doing that made me feel out of breath. I just felt weird. So what I started doing was I'm going to maximize the pleasure in each part of the breath cycle. So for me, it happens to be a sort of medium inhale, a very short inhale hold, a rapid exhale. I just let the air out. And then a very prolonged exhale hold. And that rhythm feels awesome. And I do that for 10 or 15 minutes and I can get into an alpha wave state. I feel calm, creative. It just feels awesome. That's one of those things that people that haven't tried meditation or tried it but never got to the part where it feels awesome, my heart breaks for them. It is a tool I rejected for so many years because it felt wussy to me. And remember, I'm the guy that had to learn to toughen up. So I feared that was like backwards momentum. And so finally, when Mark Divine looked at me and was basically like, stop being an idiot and try this. And he's like this tough ass Navy SEAL. I thought, all right, I'm going to try. And then it changed my life.
I switched my self-esteem from being right and being smart to being the learner who was always willing to admit that he was wrong, identify the right answer, give credit to the person who thought of it, and put more energy behind it than anyone else. And that became my driver. Now, what did I do with that driver? I turned that change in attitude, along with my co-founders at Quest Nutrition, into building, as Vishen said, the second fastest growing company in North America, valued at over $1 billion, every financial dream I'd ever had in my life come true. But at the end of the day, the only thing that mattered had nothing to do with the money. And it had everything to do with, we set out to build a business around value creation. We set out to actively ask one question: what would we do and love every day, even if we were failing? And that, for 3 very different reasons, ended up being attacking the pandemic of the body, trying to help people live a more beautiful life. And there were times where putting that value first meant that we did things that were less profitable. There were times where we put that value first and it was outright stressful to the company. But that was the driver. And that was the thing that actually allowed us to grow, because people could feel that this company was different. They could feel that we weren't after the sale. They could feel what we wanted was to help. And in today's world, leading with that, as you guys know, if you're at this conference, can have tremendous rewards.
There's a part in Fight Club, and the gift that I would like to give the world, if I had, which I did not, but if I had sat down and set my intention for, what do I want to convey? This is one of my top 5 things that I want to get across to people if you really want to succeed.
Yeah.
There's a moment in Fight Club where he puts his hand out and the guy puts a caustic solution on the back of his hand and it burns. And he tells him that he has to just leave it there. And he ends up holding his hand down so that he can't take it away at first because it hurts so badly. And then finally he releases and the guy has the strength to leave his hand there and let it just burn. And what I'm saying is you have a mechanism in your mind called the psychological immune system. Its job is to get you to pull your hand away, to wash off the thing that burns, and hey, you're fine again.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is if you want to be great, the burning sensation is you having to accept that you've fucked something up, that you're not as good as you want to be, that there are people that are better than you, that you're not as far along in the journey as you want to be. And what you have to learn how to do, if you want to be great, you have to learn to let it burn. And even though your impulse is going to be to turn away from that, to not look at it, to soothe it by saying it's them, it's their fault, they
it up. I grew up in the wrong place. It's fine for them. They're wealthy. Like whatever excuse you use to try to let yourself off the hook for not being where you want to be, instead of saying, actually, the power is the ability to let it burn. And one of my employees was just asking me yesterday, and he said, how do you not get overwhelmed? And I said, you want to know the God's honest truth? The second I feel that impulse, Brendan, I say to myself, you don't get overwhelmed. I'm not going to back down. I will not break. You cannot break me. Get that out of your head right now. And just interrupting that thought with an aggressive impulse of I'm going to let it burn. Now, I'm not a moron. So I immediately go, hey, thank you, psychology, for letting me know that, there's a lot of things coming at me right now. So I'm going to go meditate. But the way that I interrupt the thought is by reminding myself not to be weak.
Who's in control?
100%.
They once gave me a list. It was like 750,000 keywords, and I had to comb through it in an Excel spreadsheet and say either yes or no. That took days and days and days of mind-numbing yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
What do you mean 750,000
Because this was
words?
back in so we had words that did we want to advertise on? Do we want to advertise on these keywords? So you would buy a list of powerful keywords on Google, and this is all CPC stuff.
Got it.
So do we want to show up on these keywords, yes or no? Here's our business, you know what we're doing, what keywords would we want to show up on? And so I'd have to go and clean the list. There's no way, no AI to comb through it for us. So I would do that. So anything like that where I just add value, add value, add value, and everyone starts gravitating towards the person who's always upbeat, great energy,
No doubt about
and never says no, and is always asking how they can help. It is a formula that will win for all time. And so that was it. And I just threw that intensity at it, because every day I was like, I'm here to get rich. I'm here to get rich. And when I get rich, I'm going to go build my studio. I'm going to get rich, 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 rich. And that was all I thought about. I obsessed over it. Now, that would end up being my almost downfall, but that was my obsession.
In your experience with all the, business experience that you've had, the books you've read, the people that you've spent time with, what do you think is the biggest impediment to people waking up out of this matrix-like existence that's so easy for us to fall prey to?
So I've had a realization recently that I'm not an all lanes driver. There are certain things I've spent so much time thinking about that I'm very good at answering questions, and there are certain things that I'm not. So I'll give you an answer to that question from my very specific lens, which is all about the person. Mm-hmm. So I think that if the things in the world that scare me, the divisiveness scares me. And when I think about what is the individual's creation of that divisiveness, it is one, a desire to belong to a group intensely, a fear of being ridiculed or emotionally ostracized. And once we know that we have this sucking need to belong, to be respected, to be liked, you can really begin to decide what are the things that you want to be liked for, respected for. And when those are things that you respect yourself for, then all of a sudden it becomes very easy to do two things: to build something that is born of connection, community, kindness. Not that you're not selfish. I'm very selfish. It just so happens that the more selfish I am, the more I like to connect and help other people. I am very much doing it for me. But it manifests in a way that is humanity neutral, worst case, and I think humanity plus ultimately. So that starts with me having a growth mindset, so that you want to see how you're wrong, that you can have these really ferocious ideas, but hold them loosely. Because the moment that your identity is wrapped up in your ideas, you are in real trouble, man. Your identity should be wrapped up in your outcome. What outcome do you want? And are you actually getting that outcome? And then as long as you're not a sociopath with an ugly outcome, like people that get into identity politics and things like that, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, no, for real, the world they imagine is a beautiful world for the people that they love and care about. Okay, fair enough. So I'll just give them that they're trying to do something positive. But when you look at the outcome in terms of how it affects everyone, it starts to break down pretty fast. That's where it really starts to worry me. So that to me says that your identity is based on something that isn't necessarily anti-fragile. It's probably based on something pretty fragile. So to use Nassim Taleb's term, something that is fragile, that's easy to understand. Something that is anti-fragile isn't something that's strong or resilient. Those are still defined by their breaking point. It's just that their breaking point is far away. But ultimately, even something that's strong, it's strong because you think, wow, it can take a lot before it breaks. Something that's anti-fragile, on the other hand, actually grows stronger the more that it's attacked. So, and that doesn't mean you entrench in a position that clearly everybody is saying, like, this is crazy. The only anti-fragile position that I can think of is to be that of the learner. That is truly anti-fragile. So for instance, if you come at me and say that I'm stupid, I'll be like, amazing. In what way? And the reason that I say amazing is because I know that skills make me more powerful. So you've just said that I have a blind spot, which means that I'm less powerful than I could be. And I'll define power because I think it weirds some people out. To me, powerful just means you can close your eyes, imagine a world, a better world than the one that we have today. You can then open your eyes and actually create that world. So that's the kind of power that I'm trying to amass in my life, the ability to impact people at scale in a positive way. So if you're telling me that I'm less powerful than I could be, amazing. I want to know in what way, because once I'm aware of it, then I can address it because I know about myself that I'm willing to accept that I'm inadequate because I know that it's a temporary state. I'm not good at it yet. If I decide that it really does match with my goals and what I want to do, I can get good at it. So it's not ego damaging for you to tell me that I'm not doing something in a way that I could be better. Cool, tell me how. When people don't want to hear that, it's like, they're in a very brittle place. They're being backed into a corner and people lash out and they're backed into a corner. So at an individual level, I would say to everybody, if you feel that, your blood boiling when somebody challenges you, if you feel like a caged animal or like you're being backed into a corner, I promise you 100%, it is not the truth of the world. It is that you have a fragile something, a fragile ego, a fragile belief system. Something in there can break. And because it can break, you're trying to protect it. And the more you try to protect it, the more hardened and potentially violent, vicious, cruel, whatever, that you may become. So when it isn't that, and you're not afraid of that thing breaking because you want to take information in, you want to assess it, doesn't mean you're going to agree. You may take that criticism and go, I actually don't think that's accurate, but I'm really grateful that you gave me that piece of information. And look, intention matters. You can tell when someone's just trying to be a dick. So it's like you've got to be cognizant enough of that. But when you get to that point where you're leading with, everything is my fault, including the way this person's coming at me. I've done something to make them want to come at me too hard or whatever. So at the individual level, I think that the fragility versus anti-fragility is where everyone should start.
You will only ever get in your life what you absolutely must have, your absolute obsession. Is it you that says your obsessions become your possessions? That is so true. And so getting people to understand that level of like, I must have this, until it is that, like whatever it is, if it's taking care of your wife, if it's doing something rad for your mom, if it's having a beach house, whatever it is, until you need that, like you need oxygen, you won't get it. It is going to demand so much of you. You're going to fall so many times. There's going to be so many obstacles. And unless it must happen in your life, one of them will make you stop. Like you said, you can't be for sale. Like if your will can be bought, it doesn't make you a bad person, man. It really doesn't. But if your will can be bought, you're just not going to get it.
You don't get skills because it looks good on a resume. You get skills because it lets you do the thing you want to do. So let's use sports as an example. It's just all too easy not to use it. So if you're in poverty and you're Lionel Messi and you realize, actually, I think, who's the other one?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Cristiano Ronaldo, thank you. He was in the grips of poverty. And nice, that's perfect. So Cristiano Ronaldo, in the grips of poverty, realizes that playing soccer is a way out for him. And so he goes and gets the skills. Why? Because if he can win on the soccer field, then he can actually elevate his family out of poverty. Like when you see that trail, it goes back to the Nietzsche quote. If you have a why, you can survive almost any how. So how am I going to get there? The amount of work that Cristiano Ronaldo has put in to become one of the greatest, if not the greatest football player of all time, it's inhuman. Anybody else would look at it and say, nope, not willing to do that. And fair enough. But it was somebody who said, if I gain these skills, it will let me dribble around people, score when other people can't score, galvanize a team around me, leverage it to be wanted by teams, to turn into financial resources, to make me famous so that I can get brand deals and things like that. All the things that he would need to do to pull himself out of poverty. Like, this stuff isn't an accident. It's about skill acquisition. So there's another kid that had the same dream. I'm going to use soccer to get me out of poverty, and did nothing about it. Therefore did not have the skills, therefore could not elevate their family out of poverty, and looks at it like, well, this is all circumstance. It's not circumstance. It's cause and effect. It's how much energy do you put into actually gaining the skills, and did you gain them? Or did you just put in the energy and the effort thinking that should be enough to gain it, but you didn't actually gain them? So this is what, it's like the gift I want everybody to receive is you can get good at anything you set your mind to. But do you actually set your mind to it? Do you have that inhuman level of follow through? Do you keep pushing and fighting long after it stopped being fun, deep into boredom, because you have a why? You know why you're doing what you're doing, and you're just driving towards that. And when you have that, you can accomplish this extraordinary stuff. But I really think people now are doing it for the gram. You're doing it for the gram. You want to go to that thing and do it because it's like, oh, this is going to look good on my gram. And look, I've done that 100 times. I get it. But at the core of my existence is not that. At the core of my existence is I'm going to, in the amount of time that I have, I'm going to be acquiring skills.
I've always said that the most sinister thing about excuses is that they're real. Like, you really do have reasons not to be successful, but now what? Like, now what? Now what are you going to do? Like, I remember I was giving a talk at Google, and one of the guys happened to be African-American, and he said, Tom, do you think it's harder for me as a black person in America to succeed? And I said, that seems patently self-evident. Even just accepting that humans tend to gravitate towards those that look like them, what I call the school of fish phenomenon. You always see the same kind of fish with the same kind of fish. So being a minority, just by definition, is going to make things harder. But now what? Like, now you can take that excuse and give yourself an out to not try, to not get started, which is something you talk a lot about. Or you can say, regardless of that, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get where I want to go.
If you haven't read Angela Duckworth's book on grit, I highly recommend it. It is amazing. I'll give you some of the key takeaways. The biggest part about grit is sustained effort over time. If you lose interest quickly in something, once or twice, no big deal. It is what it is. You realize that it wasn't your thing. But if you lose interest over and over and over and over and over, and you always only enjoy the first 6 months of a business, and then you want to move on, you lose interest very quickly. You need to work on developing your grit, being able to sustain that over time. Because building any business, you're going to encounter hard things. You need to be able to do those hard things, focusing on the hard things. In fact, I try to start every day with one of the hardest things, to get it out of the way, to remind myself that I'm willing to attack that. All right, you want to be able to persist through boredom and suffering. I told you guys that's one of my superpowers. Long after everybody else gives up because they're not having fun anymore, I'm still there banging away at it. That's really, really important in order to create momentum, to keep things moving, and to finally get them across the finish line. A lot of people are able to get something to the 50-yard line or maybe even the 1-yard line, but they just can't quite push it over the finish line. And that is the difference between somebody who's a wantrepreneur and somebody who ends up being successful the way that they want. They can get it across the finish line. All right, learn to tell the difference between a lack of grit and genuine disinterest. If you're not interested in something, you need to move on quickly. But like I said, if that becomes serial, you may have a problem. And if you're only good in the beginning, that's the sign that you lack grit.
We're surrounded. They're in front of us, behind us, to the left and right of us. They can't get away this time. When you can be surrounded, when you can be in a position where you know that you're outgunned and still convince yourself that you're going to win, to go into it believing you're going to win, then you'll understand one of the fundamental truths of being a human being. To accomplish the extraordinary, first, you must believe. You have to believe in something even before you have any earthly right to believe in it. You have to be able to look inside of yourself and know that you're going to show up, to look inside of yourself and see something that nobody else can see, to know that you are playing to win, to know that you understand the way the mind works, and that if you can't believe it first, if you can't see a vision for yourself of being capable of something, then you're not capable of it. And that if you want to do what other people simply can't do, then you've got to start by convincing yourself
that you can do it. That comes down to a belief about who you are and what you're capable of. And that belief is yours to hold. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away. That is who you are. A decision, a choice, a belief.
Walk us through your goal setting process.
Okay, so normally it starts with chasing my bliss. So if you have read Joseph Campbell, he talks a lot about this, and this is really powerful, and I think that's something people don't think a lot about. There is something in your life, and this is sort of my secret, not secret because I've talked a lot about it, but it's like the thing I don't think people are hearing me. It's like in you right now, I promise, is something that you love to do, and most people dismiss it. And they dismiss it probably because they don't know how to monetize it. They don't think it can be a job. They don't think it can be a business. Their family and friends have told them, you know, that that's silly or stupid or whatever. And so they never realize, like they literally have a blinder to the fact that there is something in their life that's a raging interest. It may not be quite a passion, but it's like a raging interest. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always trying to start there. So the example that I always give to people of a raging interest is video games. So a lot of people like to play video games or they like to read or whatever, right? So it's like the thing that they go and do when they're sort of, you know, contracting into themselves, they've had a rough day or whatever, or even Jesus, food. Like people really retreat into food, right? And so imagine becoming a food blogger, right? It's like food is that thing that gives you comfort. It's that thing that you think you have this negative relationship with. You've got this really unstable thing where you eat and you feel guilty, whatever. Like if you could recognize that, okay, this is something that I love. There is a way to find a healthy relationship with this. I'm going to do that. And then I want to talk about it and I'm going to, you know, connect with other people. And even if in the beginning you don't know how to make money at it, like do it because it will make you feel alive, right? And there's that great quote, and again, wow, I'm really forgetting my quotes today, of who said it, but it was like, don't worry about what you could be great at. Do the thing that makes you feel most alive because what the world really needs is people who've come alive. And so like if you tap into that thing that makes you feel alive, like that to me is the juice. So turn inward, don't dismiss it no matter how silly or stupid it might be. Like what is that thing that makes you feel most alive? So that's always where I'm starting. So when you think about what we were doing at Quest or now what we're doing with Impact Theory, those were both moments where I turned inside and said, okay, what's me following my bliss?
Like this is the thing when I really sit down and try to break down for people what you need to do to be successful. There's certain places I stop because there's nothing universal to give them. And the plan is one of them, right? So I'm just ridiculously psycho about people need a goal, a hyper-specific goal, and a plan. So my thing is identify the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that gap is a gap of skill set. And now you have to go and get those skills. But most people can't identify what skills actually lie between where they are and where they want to go. They get it like from the end result, but they don't know how to plan that out.
Yeah.
And I don't even understand other than just sort of by intuition how I'm doing it.
I want to tell you a story, and this story is either going to make you love me or hate me. It has that effect on people. The story goes like this. My wife is British. Some of this story is true and some is made up. I'll try to delineate. My wife is British, that really is true. Let's say that she was in London visiting her family. She's in the bedroom that she grew up in. The doors are locked. The alarm is on. Her mother is sitting quietly in the next room, protecting her from all kinds of woes. And right at that moment, a meteorite comes screaming through the atmosphere, smashes through the roof, and kills my wife. Whose fault is that? Now, I know what most people are thinking. It's nobody's fault. It's divine providence. It's luck. It's fate. It just is what it is. That's not how I live my life. And I invite you all to adopt the following belief system. It's all my fault. Now, I use the word fault because it jabs people in the ribs. It gets people's attention. It makes them angry because they think I'm victim shaming or blaming the victim, and I'm not. I'm saying I refuse to ever be a victim. And if I maintain control, then there's something that I could do about it. Now, I use that example because it seems so absurd, and yet, at the same time, I know this is true. There is a group that track what are called near-Earth objects, and they're trying to make sure that if one is ever on a collision course for Earth, that we'd be able to do something about it, whether it's a laser or a planted nuclear explosion, whatever the case may be. Now, I know they exist. I even know where they are. I've never called them to give them encouraging words. I've never sent them a dime of my money. I've never sent them ideas. I know they exist. I do nothing about it. So why on earth, if it comes around and that decision bites me in the ass and my wife is killed by a meteorite, would I blame anyone else? I could have done something and I chose not to. Now here's the great news. I think it's a wise choice. I think the odds of that happening to my wife are so slim that it would be a total waste of time. But it shows you the lengths to which I had to take my mentality in order to learn the skills that I needed to learn to get where I wanted to go. And the way that I define an entrepreneur is somebody who encounters an obstacle and gets really pissed because the thought of giving up never occurs to them. And now they know they have to go over, under, through it, around it, whatever, but they're not gonna slow down and they're not gonna stop.
How do you handle competing simultaneous good ideas?
Things have to be done sequentially. And that's a huge pain, but really focusing on one thing at a time is super critical to getting things over the finish line. And this is something that not enough people think about. Getting something over the finish line is the key. So it gets really boring, and there's just an innate boredom to, especially when I conceptualize it as being an entrepreneur. One of the things that every now and then, just sort of tongue-in-cheek and for fun, I'll document is when we're doing something really boring or stupid. Like this morning, I should have filmed it. Lisa spent like an hour wrangling cables. And it's like, that shit is so dull, but it has to be done. Like otherwise, you get right up to it. Like you've got all these grand ideas, you're gonna change the world, you're gonna do this amazing stuff, and then cables are the thing that stop you, right? And so that's one of the things that makes Amazon so amazing is they get it like on a tactical level, just from a, how do you improve the customer experience? Blocking and tackling, right? It's not sexy, but you've got to do it, the blocking and tackling. So it's the same thing with doing things sequentially. You'll get these great ideas, you want to do them all, and you can do them all. There's so much time in life, but you just can't do them all at the same time. So breaking them into, and if they stack, and that, like this concept that Tim Ferriss has of the lead domino, like finding that so if you've got these 5 things that you want to do, the order that you do them in can be really critical. And then I know that in saying that I'm paralyzing people, because then they're like, well, I don't know what the order is. And yes, that's one of the things you have to get good at, is really identifying what is the sequence in which things are optimally done. And the only way to do that is to stop and think through it and think, okay, what's the lead domino? If I do this, then what are the other things that fall? So take, for me, speed reading, or the way I do it, Audible, that was like the lead domino. If I can train myself to assimilate information faster, then I can get a skill faster. And if I can get a skill faster, then I can execute faster. So I actually put a lot of early energy into learning to listen to Audible books at 3x, right? So people always think that like I'm crazy. And part of me is always hoping like someone will say, show me your Audible right now. I want to see that it's actually at 3x. Because it's like I put so much energy and effort into being able to do that, and people think that, oh well, you just have some lucky skill. It's not that. Like anything, you just push yourself to do it. And I'm absolutely horrific at speed reading. So if I hadn't gotten into Audible, I would have really, really had to force myself to do that, because it's the lead domino. So find those things that are the lead dominoes, and just ask like, if I do this thing, what's the one that gives me the exponential result on the other stuff?
This has been one of my favorite weeks, and it's been one of my favorite weeks for a reason that's probably very counterintuitive for everybody. It's because I've been tested. Last week I was sick. I don't know if it was the flu, food poisoning, whatever it was, but I had my ass handed to me. I was sleeping like 12, 13 hours a night, which for me is absolutely unheard of. And then this week I had 3 episodes to prepare for. We shot them in less than 48 hours. So over the course of just a couple of days, I had to jam-pack my brain full of 3 incredible human beings, Mel Robbins, Jason Silva, and Wyclef Jean. It was insane and entailed doing an absolute ton of work. But this is what I love. This is where I get to earn my reputation with myself. I talk about earning credibility with yourself all the time. And the only chance you get to do that is when things get hard. I'm never impressed with myself, how I act when things are easy, and I'm very impressed with myself when things are hard. So I'm always actually looking for those moments when things are difficult, when I know that I'm willing to put in a level of work that other people just aren't willing to put in, that I'm willing to spend hour after hour after hour researching people, having 2 people on the same day that each require a day or a day and a half of research, so spending my entire weekend working on it literally until the minute I go to bed. I was listening to podcasts and interviews as I'm brushing my teeth, literally making my wife put the dogs away so that I could take every possible second, every transitional moment, everything to drink in a little bit more knowledge and then synthesize all of that stuff so that I could do an interview that nobody else is going to be able to do. And that for me is what everybody should be doing. If you want to do something great, if you want to stand out, and I want this show to stand out, if you want to be able to pull that off, you've got to work harder than anybody else. There's no substitute for that. And that is the thing that I love. That is what I love about hard work. Most people just aren't willing to do it. So if you want to separate yourself from everybody else, get better than everybody else. And when you're willing to put in that work, when you actually hunger for moments like this, where you get to show yourself, because everybody else, I don't care what they think. I want to know for myself who I am and how hard I'm willing to work. So when you get these moments, take advantage of them. When they come, when you have a hard road in front of you, hit it with enthusiasm, hit it with excitement, hit it knowing that on the other side of that, you get to feel a certain way about yourself that other people will never get to feel in their lives, because it's the way that only people who push when no one's watching get to feel about themselves. That's when you'll really be extraordinary. That's when you'll really do something. That's when you will surpass everyone around you. Because you just did the work. You look forward to the test. You wanted to be pushed. You wanted to see what you're made of. That's what it's about. Right now, all I want to do is go to bed, and this is where identity kicks in. This is why I have this painting here of Michael Jordan from the infamous flu game. I got sick, I don't know what it is. Spent the last couple days with stomach cramps, fatigue, fever. I've got a big talk tonight at USC, and I would love nothing more than right now to crawl into bed, but I'm not gonna do that. And I'm not gonna do that because my identity doesn't allow it. Even right now, as I think about the amount of energy that I'm expending in preparing for tonight and getting through the day and making sure that everybody here on the team is moving forward, is because of that person that I'm trying to become. These are the things that I absolutely have to do in order to keep pushing forward, to be me. It comes down to identity. It comes down to what vision you have crafted for yourself, what demands you make of yourself, and how you react when you're tested. At the end of the day, you should want to be tested. At the end of the day, I'm actually grateful that twice now I've been confronted with either doing an interview or having a talk where I'm sick. And the reason that I'm grateful for that is I get to see how I respond. So what I will say to you guys is, who are you trying to become? Not who are you today, but where are you trying to get to? And what is the price that you're willing to pay to get there? And what are the things that you're doing, repeating in your own mind, surrounding yourself with, that are actually going to help make you that person? Because at the end of the day, your identity is all that you have. At the end of the day, your identity is going to drive your behavior. And at the end of the day, there is nothing else.
Growing up, I didn't show any early signs of promise. A little embarrassing to put these photos up. I wish these photos were atypical, but in reality, that is what I look like pretty much all the time. I always had some sort of clown hat on. I actually wore my pajamas out and about on the streets. That's San Francisco. Yeah, that was really where I started. And wanting to do something with my life, I had this unending ease that I could do more, I could be more. I just didn't know how, and I felt trapped, but I didn't know what I was trapped by. And my own mother, who's always been my biggest cheerleader, who all but kicked me out of the house when I was panicking and didn't want to leave the state for college, was actually the only person in my graduating class to leave the state. Wasn't something that people from Tacoma, Washington did. You stayed, you went to a state school. My mom still lives less than 3 miles from the house that she grew up in. So this is not a place where people go off and explore. But my mom always felt like if I didn't do that, that I would have a lot of the same regrets that she had, that I wouldn't see the world, that I wouldn't discover myself, and that one day I would look back and say, what if I had only tried? Now, what she didn't tell me at the time, but she has since confessed, is that she just assumed I was going to fail. Now, my mom is hilarious. She's not Jewish, but you would think she is, because her whole life, since kicking me out of the nest, she's been desperately trying to claw me back.
And so one day I finally asked, I said, what is with that? Like, literally, you forced me to leave and go to college, so why have you worked so hard to get me back? And that's when she said, with nothing but love in her heart, I just always thought you would fail. And that was a gift. It was really a gift, because at that moment I realized that the things that I've accomplished in my life had nothing to do with being given something at birth. Now, I felt this unease that I was talking about, that I could do more, but I was stuck and I didn't know what I was trapped in. In 1999, a movie came out called The Matrix. That movie ended up giving me the intellectual framework to think about what was happening in my life, because there was something limiting me. There was something that made me feel adrift. And this gave me the vernacular to think about what it was. And in the movie, they talk about taking the red pill. The red pill, its only promise is the truth. That's it. It's not saying that it's going to make things better. It's simply going to reveal the way that the world really is. And that, for me, was incredibly intoxicating. And I took the red pill intellectually, and what I began to realize is that the mind is the matrix in and of itself. Now, there's people that'll debate whether we actually live inside the matrix, whether we're actually in a simulation, and it's a fun conversation, but I honestly don't care about the answer, because I can tell you right now, today, in this moment, I promise you, the matrix has you. If you guys know David Foster Wallace's concept of this is water, to a fish, water is so ubiquitous it ceases to exist. Now, we all have that same thing, and it's playing on us, and it's keeping us from becoming who we want to become. And that thing is our mindset. It's our belief system. It is so ever present. It is so ingrained into the fabric of who you are and the way that you process data, you don't even notice it. You don't even know that it's real. And this is the thing that impacts your life. It is your inability to see that your mindset controls everything, that it is water in and of itself. Now, when I heard this from Shakespeare, I realized that once you become aware of the water, you can change everything. That you can go from a scared, lost kid in Tacoma to whomever you want to be. And in understanding that, things began to become possible.
What makes you happy?
The easy answer and the most truthful answer is time with my wife. The other answer to what makes me happy, there's really two things. So time with my wife, and then the pursuit, which I'll put in all caps, right?
Yep.
So the pursuit of whatever, the pursuit of getting better, the pursuit of impacting the world, the pursuit of building something big that matters. The pursuit, maybe I never get it. I don't care about that. I care about the pursuit. I care about whether sincerely I'm actually trying to make it happen. Not just like empty dreams, but like for real. I'm actually giving myself over to this. And I've spent a lot of time in the inner cities. I big brothered for this one kid for 8.5 years, completely changed my life. And then having 1,400 employees and about 1,000 of which grew up hard in the inner cities. Hard, I mean, most of them grew up in Compton. I mean, it was just some of the most extraordinary stories I've ever heard. And I realized that those people are as extraordinary as anybody. Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, like all those same raw materials exist in people in the inner cities that nobody believes in, nobody think will ever go anywhere. And they won't because they don't believe in themselves. And so we were talking at our most honest, like what are we really driven by? And I'm driven by that moment of awakening, which I had in my own life where I finally realized, wait, I can learn new things. So just because I'm not good today doesn't mean I can't be good tomorrow. And that filled me with so much excitement. I want to see that in other people. And I want to see what the world looks like when other people realize, wait a second, that Steve Jobs quote that the world is made by people no smarter than you is actually true. Yeah. And so if you're believing that these people are smarter than you because you did bad on your SATs, I'm just going to tell you right now, stop. So you can develop yourself. So my obsession became that humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. We are literally wired from the ground up in order to grow and improve under stress and pressure. So it's like, what's the phrase? Pressure can burst pipes, but it also creates diamonds. Yes. So it's like, you need the pressure. And yes, it can hurt, but it can also make something amazing if you're willing to put yourself in that situation. So it's a weird twist of fate that humans, in order to build the muscle, you first have to tear it, right?
Yes.
So, but once you accept that that's how it works, you can do extraordinary things. When people say like, oh, I don't want to intern, or I want to make sure I'm getting paid when I'm worth, all that stuff, it's like,
if you're focused in the beginning of your career with monetizing your current skill set, you will never get where you want to go, because money only spends once unless you're really good at investing, which most young people are not. Whereas skills monetize again and again and again and again.
Great point. That's so powerful. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, money only monetizes once, or you can only spend it once, but your skills can be monetized over and over and over.
You talk a little bit about seeking power.
Yeah.
And it confused me when I first heard it. I'm not sure I even liked how you said it at first until I understood it. And so can you talk to everybody about seeking power and what that means?
Yeah, this is another one of those things that internally for me, it's such a beautiful concept that I was so surprised the first time I said it out loud and somebody was like, oh, that's gross. And I was like, okay, I need to explain this then.
Yes.
So to me, power is the ability to close your eyes, imagine a world, a beautiful world, the world that you want to exist, open your eyes, and then be able to actually make that world come true. And so when I say I'm seeking power, I'm saying I'm seeking the skills that will allow me to make the world a better place. It will, whether that's to be able to connect with people and build a team and get other people excited, whether that's to be able to build a business that generates enough funds to improve the lives of the employees and the people that we touch with great products. You know, whatever that is, like to be willing and excited by the thought of going out and getting those skills, because those skills really are powerful. And to me, it's like people misunderstand power the way they misunderstand money.
This is me 60 pounds ago. And I knew if I was going to accomplish anything in my life, I was going to have to get control of my mind. Now, ironically, there's two ways to get control of your mind. Way number one is directly going to the mind, which can be very scary, can be very daunting, very ethereal. It's ephemeral, it's hard to grab onto, it's hard to touch. But way number two is through the body. And so I decided that my kung fu was going to be to get very good at developing my body. And in that process, I was going to learn about nutrition, which would allow me to help my mom and my sister. In that process, I was going to earn credibility with myself. And earning credibility with yourself is so important. Do it in micro ways. For me, just showing up to the gym every day was a micro victory. I said I was going to do it, and I did it. Now, you have to understand, I hate working out. So for all of you crazy people that get an endorphin rush from running, I hate you all. Running for me is like being stuffed into a meat grinder. There is absolutely nothing pleasurable about it whatsoever. So whatever neurological thing you guys get that you've been blessed with, I have not been blessed with that. So for me, showing up at the gym sucks. Eating a bowl of ice cream is awesome. And so getting to a better place for me was a totally different journey. Thank you. And what that was just showing up every day and putting in the work. It was reading about human metabolism and understanding how what I eat impacts my body. It was earning a little bit of discipline every day, knowing that, well, I did it yesterday, I can do it again today. It was not eating something that I wanted to eat. And most importantly, and if you're taking notes, write this down, it was about changing my identity. Because at the end of the day, identity and values drive behavior.
When people come to me and they're struggling with something or whatever, I always start with the same thing. There's one belief that matters. And if you're willing to take this on, every other domino falls from here. And if you don't believe this, then we're in trouble. It's very similar, which is that the human animal is designed to learn and grow, meaning you can get better at anything, which is another way of saying everything is figure outable. You can learn this stuff. So yes, I get it. You don't know it now. I agree. You right now today, you're incapable. You're in the moment where the radio's broken. You haven't yet opened it. You're not yet trying to figure out like what pieces need to go where. You haven't done the experimentation. So I fully accept that right now you're incapable. But if you believe that you can learn, then it all goes from there.
There really are only two macro level motivators that we have in life, and that's pleasure and pain. And so what I want people to understand is, okay, so if nature only gave you two things to motivate you, pleasure and pain, why would you eliminate half of them? And so most people think that life is about avoiding the pain. I'm here to tell you right now, in a very controlled fashion, it is about really experiencing the pain, learning from it. So Ray Dalio, the most successful hedge fund manager of all time, has a perfect math equation. Pain plus reflection equals progress. If you don't feel the pain, you never reflect on it. So my thing is I spend 80% of my time focused on the beautiful things in my life, the things I'm grateful for, the beautiful things that I want to bring into existence, all of it.
20% of the time though, I'm in the darkness, man. I'm in that Tim Grover, relentless, I'm going to make this happen if I have to break myself, and I'm not afraid to lean into that because I know how powerful it is. Now, if you really want to put numbers how powerful this is, they did a study and they wanted to find out what happens, how can we get people to endure more pain? And the punchline is hilarious. So they would take people and they would submerge their arm in a bucket of ice and they would just hold it there as long as you can. Now, at first it's just cold, but after a while it really starts to hurt. And so people would end up yanking their arms out. They found that people could hold their arm in the bucket 35% longer if you let them display anger. So put it in, they get to that point where they're about to pull it out and you tell them, yell, cuss, do whatever you need to, and they'd be able to do it. The expression of intensity, even what I'm doing right now, I can feel myself ready, right? I'm ready to strike, my muscles are tense, I've got a different posture, I bring my chin down, there's intensity in my eyes. Like, dude, I'm now feeling that because I'm embodying it, right? So it makes me really feel that. And so I actually started to tell the story earlier. I hate the gym. But what I would do to make myself work out is my wife would be on the opposite side of the gym and I would stare at her and I would imagine her being attacked. And I would imagine her being attacked by people bigger than me and that the only way that I could fight them off was to get stronger. There was nothing beautiful in it. I was not worried about aesthetics. I was worried about saving my wife. And by stepping into that dark place, and because people were like, what are you doing? But dude, I needed that motivation to push past what I want, to push past pain, boredom, all of it, and just to really get into it and get a result. But I find that people shy away from that. Look, to me, it's an 80-20 split. If you're spending more than 20% of your time there, it will be corrosive. It will start to erode your sense of self because you're going to feel badly, right? Because I would be saying to myself, you're weak, come on, like you've got to get stronger. If you spend 80% of your time doing that, that sucks. I don't want to live like that. But not being able to dip into both, you'll just never hit the level of extraordinary. You may be fine. You may even be good. But you're never going to be great.
Audacity is nothing. Don't worry about being audacious. The reason people fear being audacious is they don't want to be me 10 years from now when this all fails, right? They're thinking, oh man, what if this doesn't work? This guy's going to look like an asshole. And it's like, yeah, maybe other people will think that I'm a total dumbass. It doesn't matter. And why doesn't it matter? Because of technique. Because if I know how to build a house, I can build a house. So my thing is, I'm not trying to posture or be cool. I'm telling you, I have a set of skills. That set of skills lets me do things. I'm just interested in doing those things. So whether or not I hit my timelines does not matter. I'm in the skill acquisition game. Skills let you do things. I'm in the game of doing the things that my skills allow me to do. So I want to impact people's lives. Maybe I'm not able to pull it off at a film level. I'll find another way. Or maybe it takes me a lot longer to pull it off. Okay, fine. As long as I love what I'm doing, even when I'm failing, there's nothing to lose.
I used to post a lot about what time I was waking up. I'd show myself in the gym sometimes at like 2 a.m. And so people started setting an alarm. And I'm like, whoa. Like, that's not what this is. Like, I sleep as much as I need to. I prioritize sleep. So I stopped doing that because I didn't want people to lose sight of what I'm really saying, which is that fulfillment is the punchline. So if we can just literally skip to the end of like the whole thing that we're going to talk about, like, all of life, the success that people are chasing, they think they want money and fame and all of that. And those things can be very valuable in a way. But what I want people to hear in my message about like working hard and discipline and all of that is the only reason that I put as much time and energy into it is because I love it. So me trying this method in something I don't love, I've lived that. I know where that ends, and it ends with me quitting. And, you know, that's something that I'm sure we'll get into later, but it was like, I did that. The first 6.5 years of my journey as an entrepreneur were about the typical grinded out stuff. And look, man, it was an important phase of my life, but it ended up really chipping away at my soul. And I flirted with depression just enough in my life to know how dangerous it is. And dangerous because it will literally lead to somebody killing themselves. Or just dangerous in that, yeah, sure, you live a normal lifespan, but you hate every minute of it. And so just really understanding how you get out from under that. And like lesson number 1, love what you do.
You've said it before that when you started out, there was a time when it was just about money. It was just about getting rich.
That's it. I used to repeat that over and over and over.
What? I just want to get rich?
Yeah, I just want to get rich. That's what this is. I kept saying to my wife, I'm going to make you rich. I'm going to make you rich. I'm going to make you rich. Like it was the core of my identity. From the time I was probably preteen, because this was tied to my desire to be a filmmaker, I knew like inside I identify as an artist far more than I do as an entrepreneur. And I was looking at, okay, I love poetry and I love filmmaking. Well, there's no money to be made in poetry, but I could become truly wealthy in filmmaking. So that for me was a creative endeavor that I could also generate tremendous wealth. And so that put me on a path, which of course was part of the reason that I went into being an entrepreneur in the first place. Was I needed to control the art, I needed to control the resources. So I had to learn business. And so going down that path and really realizing what it took to build a business and all of that, which is a whole universe unto itself, to have the will to push through all of that difficulty, it was, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to get rich. And then just realize that maybe for Scrooge McDuck, who wants to swim in his money, that would be like a self-sustaining motivation. But somebody even like a Warren Buffett, at the end of the day, money means something to him. And it's the thing that it means that drives him. It isn't the money in and of itself. And the problem was I was literally chasing money in and of itself.
If you want to believe in yourself and have a sense of self-worth, you have to earn that. And I wish it's something that somebody can give you, but they can't. But you can, doing really simple stuff. You say you're going to do something, do it.
Yes.
So my thing is, I said I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go to the gym. Whether I like it or not, I know that it has advantages in terms of cognitive optimization, in terms of longevity, all of that. So I'm going.
Yep.
And doing that every day and pushing into the extra reps and showing up for myself to get the result, I feel good about that.
Yeah.
And it's one very simple thing that I can control, doesn't require anybody else, no one has to come through for me, nothing.
If you want to make a change, you have to change your vision of who you are. You have to begin telling yourself a different narrative. And the narrative you tell yourself about yourself is everything. And if you tell yourself that you're a scared, undereducated kid from Tacoma whose family has never accomplished anything, let me tell you what you will become. A scared, undereducated kid from Tacoma who never accomplishes anything, because that's what you believe. You tell yourself that story enough, and it will become real. But on the flip side, you could tell yourself a story of you're a learner. You learn faster than most people. You're willing to put in more work than most people. You're willing to read more books than most people. You're willing to spend an inhuman amount of time every day improving your mind simply by getting new ideas into the system. And that you will admit that you're wrong faster than anybody else, that you won't let your ego get in the way. And you tell yourself that story over and over and over. So when somebody comes and tells you how stupid you are, that you're just a dumb kid from Tacoma, you go, you're right, that's amazing. Thank you for pointing out that flaw, because now that I'm aware of it, I can improve it because I'm the learner. And once I switched my narrative to being the learner, it didn't matter where I started, it only mattered where I was trying to go. And as long as I had that clarity, then I could execute, because I believed I could do anything I set my mind to without limitation.
When you look at somebody with money, especially when you don't have it, you admire them. And so you think, if I had money, I would admire myself. But it doesn't work like that. So once you get the money, the thing you thought would happen to yourself, the story about who you are, you think is going to change, and it doesn't. So that's when people become totally disillusioned. They think, if I have the Ferrari, I'll think differently about myself. If I have the house, I'll think differently about myself. Your insecurities are coming with you wherever you go. So if you think anything external is going to change that, the only thing that changes your insecurities, show up in the gym. Put in the effort, go to work, do the things, suffer in service of somebody else, do something to bring beautiful things to people that you love and care about, do something beautiful to bring something to somebody you've never even met. Those things will change your story.
If a meteorite were to strike my wife and kill her, I wouldn't blame anybody but me. That is entirely my fault. And I can back that up, because people are like, Tom, that's so ridiculous. How could a meteorite striking your wife and killing her be your fault? That's dumb luck, divine providence, like fate, whatever you want to call it. But Jesus, man, it's ridiculous to blame yourself. And then I point out, I'm on the board of the X Prize. At the X Prize, there was a prize presented that would allow us to track near-Earth objects better than we are today. I voted it down. Because I don't think it matters. I don't think that the likelihood is high enough, but it's there. I know that there's an organization right now that already tracks near-Earth objects. I've never sent them a dime of my money. I've never called them to encourage them. I've never sent them an email with ideas, nothing. Now I know all of this stuff exists, and I do nothing to stop it from happening. So the only thing that I can say if my wife were killed by a meteorite is I did nothing to stop it. I could have made a different decision and got a different outcome. I need to focus on that to remind myself I can always make a change. I can always do something different and get a different outcome. So if you come in and you disrupt my industry, my first thought is not, F the world, what are you doing? This is so terrible and sinister. We have to stop AI or whatever. My first reaction is, how do I become more adaptive? And people are putting so much energy into thinking like, F
I'm frail and weak, I have to be protected, that they become frail and weak, when in reality they are not. My favorite quote on the planet is, Darwin is often misquoted as saying it's the strongest of the species that survive. He did not say that. What he actually said was, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but rather the most adaptive to change. That's how humans became the apex predator. We are the most adaptive species on the planet. You can take us anywhere and we will thrive. And it is that ability to adapt mentally and physically that makes us amazing.
Because I'm a learner, because that's my identity, and because I really believe whatever skill set you have today, it's already taken you as far as it's going to take you. So unless this is where you want to be for the rest of your life, you've got to be open to change. You've got a hunger for it. So I don't fear change. I actually enjoy change because change has been the thing that's allowed me to improve my life consistently. And so I'm always looking for ways in which I'm wrong because I don't value myself for being right. And once people understand that for me, it wasn't, in the beginning, I was just telling myself to do that. It wasn't at a limbic level. Now I've been telling myself to value myself only for my willingness to admit when I'm wrong and to learn. That at a limbic level, it's true. So when somebody tells me I'm wrong, I have this rush of like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because if they're right and I really am wrong and they're making me aware of this, I'm going to get more powerful. Mm-hmm. So, and that goes back to my real belief in skills having utility. So it's like the ego doesn't have utility. Maybe some, but it's not, when misplaced and built around the wrong things, can be super dangerous. But because my ego is actually built around my willingness to stare at my inadequacies, when somebody tells me that, oh, you're doing this bad, wrong, or whatever, I don't spend time. It does still sting. I think that's just natural. So it'll be like, oh, that sucks, but oh, a reminder that this is going to give me something powerful. And so I use it sort of as mental jujitsu, and then I open myself up and I learn.
Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? The science says that when you just watch a video, you get motivated, you get inspired, you have a 35% chance of following through on your goals. 35%? That's not enough. That's not enough just to get motivated. Believe Nation, we're here. You're here. Today matters. You're an action taker. When you commit to a plan of action of when and how you're going to follow through, when you write it down, you have a 91% chance of following through. And when you commit publicly to somebody else, it jumps to 95% chance. From 30-something% to 95% chance of you following through. Believe Nation, we need to make this happen. So question of the day, your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action specific for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and I'm going to show on screen sometime next week to celebrate you.
Here's one of my favorite things about neuroscience. This literally changed my life. This affected my marriage. And when I give people the answer, Jay, they're going to think this is so dumb. But I'm talking to the 6 of you out there right now who are actually going to do this.
That are watching.
It will change their life, dude. You ready?
I'm ready.
When you take on a facial expression, you will feel the emotion. No matter what. Whether you want to or not, you will. And when I realized that the brain and the body are in a feedback loop, meaning that the brain gets as much information, so the vagus nerve, I think 82% of the signals running on the vagus nerve, which is the biggest nerve in your body, 82% is your body speaking to your brain. Not your brain telling your body to do something, your body telling your brain what's up, how to feel, sending signals that end up influencing massive amounts of both conscious and subconscious behavior. So it is truly a loop. So I don't get angry easily. And this actually used to really wind my wife up. Or I should say, but when I did get angry, I would stay angry. So it'd be like nothing, 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 nothing. Boom, now I'm pissed. And now I'm going to be pissed for the next 8 hours or a day or 2 days. Or God, there were times I'd be mad for like 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, it's funny, I've never once come out of one of those periods and thought, you know what, I'm glad I was mad that long. That was a great use of a Saturday with my wife. This is really just a smart way of living. Every time I came out and thought this was moronic, I don't know what you're doing, you're wasting your time. So I had read this study that said if you hold a pencil in your mouth and then have somebody which sort of forces you into almost a smile, and then have people rate their levels of happiness, they'll rate it higher. And I thought that can't be true. And so the study goes on to talk about getting people to laugh out loud and all this stuff. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. So I would force myself to laugh out loud and it would change my mood. Now I felt stupid doing it for sure. But about like 6 seconds in, it's so dumb and so ridiculous. And now you're getting that feedback loop that it actually becomes real and your mood lightens. And so I wrote this letter to myself and I gave it to my wife to read to me if ever I was in a bad mood. And she only had to read it to me once. And it worked so profoundly that I realized I don't need somebody to read the letter, because the notion of, and the letter was basically, because whenever you're in a fight with somebody and they try to soothe you, you reject that because you think, well, they're just doing that because they've done something to wrong me. I have a legitimate reason to be upset. They have an incentive, a perverse incentive, to see me forgive it. So I'm not going to forgive it. This is real, and some deep recess of your brain, you feel it needs to be punished. And so in that mode, you won't believe what they say because they have motive. So I had to read this letter and it was like, hey, me, it's me. You know I have no motive in this. I want nothing other than, when you're looking back on this, for you to feel like you made the right decision. And so what I want you to do right now is laugh out loud. That's it. Just take 10 seconds. Laugh out loud. And at the end of that, you know it's going to change your brain chemistry. And I remember citing the study and I was like, you know it'll work, so just do it. And so she read it to me. I laughed out loud. It felt ridiculous. I didn't want to do it, by the way. I did not want to laugh out loud. But the code that I live by is, man, you always do that which moves you towards your goals. I want to have an amazing marriage, so I did it. I laughed out loud, and it changed my mood on a dime. And I was like, I can't believe this is real.
If you want some incredible motivation with Brendan Burchard, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.